Hello and welcome to episode number 109 of Killer POV. I'm one of your co-hosts, Rob G. Sitting with me is the beer-guzzling Elric Kane.
Cheers, lad.
Beer courtesy of Adam Lima again.
Yes, but except 6 of them were non-alcoholic, so we just smashed those bottles against the wall in the rain.
Oh, come on, guys. You brought those for me.
That's for Rebekah McKendry from Fangoria.
Hello.
Those are the O'Douls. Yeah, me and Elric are looking at them with much disdain because there's no alcohol.
And the weird thing is I looked closer. It says no alcohol, but then you look closely and it says it has like 0.05%.
Yeah, it's like a tiny percent. So it's like decaf tea where like it still says it contains a tiny
green
amount
tea or something. Yeah.
So if you're an alcoholic, why would that fuck you up?
I don't know. I think it'd be an interesting litmus, like a test. We could like not know that it was alcohol free, drink it, and see if we get silly.
Do you know how many of those you would have to drink to actually get like messed up?
Like
it's
2.
Like 2. Elric is such a lightweight.
Doesn't take
Depends
much.
if Felicia Rose is in the room.
Oh, that's you get drunk just in her presence.
I get drunk on her.
But thank you, Adam Lima, for thinking of me and my non-beer loving ways.
Star of Brain Dead.
Yeah.
Cameo, really, but still. We're gonna do some shark.
It's going to be a fun topic.
I'm ridiculously excited about this because I've been begging to do Aquaticars, and we're not quite at Aquaticars yet.
Well, we have an expert
closer.
in the pure shark exploitation.
Sticking to sharks.
And we also are going to talk a little bit about unmade films, a topic that could be its own show, and there's so much about that fascinates me, but we'll be getting that in a few minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. In the meantime, I didn't really see anything. I watched shark movies because it's Shark Week for starters.
Yes,
and
Eli Roth hosting. Probably the best thing you'll ever do.
Right. Good promo for Meg, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
which looks cool.
Yeah,
I'm into
really
that
getting excited to see Meg. I mean, you guys know I have not been a fan of most of Mr. Roth's material thus far, but the fact that he's doing a shark movie might redeem everything in my eyes.
Yeah, it makes me curious. Yeah. I mean, he's interesting because he's doing these weird subgenres that aren't popular anymore, which is cool. I like that about it. I like that he did a cannibal film. I just didn't like the cannibal film. You know? What are you going to do? I like the intent. You also saw a little bit of a horror film that I would call a real horror film, which is Superman 3. The last act of being horrible. But
it scared me as a kid.
Yeah.
Robot Chick, that was a screening at your place.
Richard
Superman
Pryor seems
3.
like he was in a different movie.
Yeah, no, he was. I got to lend you the documentary about the franchise. But
I saw a film that I think Becca had seen a few weeks or maybe a couple months back. It's now streaming on Netflix. Just started, called Faults.
Yes,
good.
It was one of my favorites of the year so far.
It's definitely very fringe when we're talking about horror because it deals with cults and the breaking of cults, people in cults, and there's a slightly thin supernatural or cosmic thing going on in the middle of it. It's really beautifully made. It's my favorite thing about it was that I didn't know where it was going. I was surprised by the tone from the first shot because I was expecting like something maybe more in line with Sacrament, and from the first shot, it's more like Todd Solondz or something. It's like beautifully shot. It's comic. Like the character Leland Orser is a funny fuck up who has not a dollar to his name, and they're forcing him out of a restaurant in the opening scene.
He's eating ketchup packets because he can't afford food.
And he's the expert on breaking cults, and then the babe of all babelicious babes, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who I've always loved. In this, she's dressed way down because she's in a cult, is basically, he takes her and tries to deprogram her, and it has just interesting twists. But where it starts and where it ends, it was a really interesting journey. I definitely agree. I think it's one of the better movies of the year, not just horror. It's a little harder for me to call it horror, but AJ's really good.
Same as like The Sound of My Voice.
Yeah, it's like that.
It's kind of like,
but it's more
fringy.
fun to watch.
Yeah,
I like Sound of My Voice, but this is more fun.
Faults is almost a comedy.
Yeah.
Right.
And AJ, who I heard, in it. He's really good, and it's really actually quite different from. I think that's the most different role I've seen him play, and it really surprised me because it's really early on, and it's a little more than a cameo, but it's fun, and it's he's clean shaven and kind of clean cut, so it was it threw me a little because I didn't realize he was in it.
That's in the trailer too, I think.
It is. That's kind of the trailer is him punching the guy, and you're like, oh.
But this is a good one because it's on Netflix streaming right now. You don't have to pay for it. Definitely worth checking. Watch the first 20 minutes and see if it grabs you. I really like movies about cults, especially on the fringe, and in a way, it might program well with Sacrament. If you watch Sacrament, which is the intense real cult, and then you follow up with Faults. I had fun doing that. I like you. I also caught up on some more Salem. I'm almost done with season 1. I'm like I'm like 70% digging. I like it, but it still feels a little routine. But everyone keeps saying second season.
That's what everyone keeps saying for me too. I ended up binge watching. I was cleaning my house and I carried around my iPad while doing it, and I watched like 5 episodes in a row on Saturday while I was cleaning. And yeah, they were kind of hit or miss. Where sometimes I'd be like, "Oh, that's so badass," and then other times I was like, "Wah wah."
Yeah, it's like the style and the horror elements are really cool. It's just, it sometimes falls on typical TV tropes. That's nothing like radical, like, but I could see how like Hannibal it could take another level. So we'll see. I'm
pushing through for the second season because the people who had told me that said the same thing about Supernatural. Like, just get through the first one. It's
true.
worth it.
That got a lot better,
and it gets a lot better. So.
And the one other story I have to share because it was really funny. When we had David Scow on here, and this is like probably one of my other favorite things that's happened since we've been doing the show. We had Scow here, and I was telling him about this book that I had lost when we went to Austin.
Oh, right.
And I couldn't remember the author at the time, but I remember the name of the book, and it ended up being a writer called Robert Jeremy Johnson. And the book ended up being called We Live Inside You. It was like an anthology, but I was with you. I think I left on the plane. The more I think about it. Anyway, so I complained about not being able to hear it and not be able to read it. And I got home and there was an email from somebody trying to get us, but then I got an email from the author saying, I'm sending you my books.
Oh,
my
wow.
gosh.
So I don't know if he listened or if his friend said they're talking about you. He sent me that. He sent me his brand new like actual novel, which is meant to be really good, called Skullcrack City. I've heard nothing but great things about it. He sent them both. He inscribed funny things in it, put weird Garbage Pail Kid cards and weird just stuff in it. It's very eccentric.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I started reading the anthology, and it's really good. And there's a story in there called When Susurrus Stirs, and I looked it up because it's very body horror, kind of punk body horror stuff. And that there was a really cool site on Facebook where I guess somebody's adapting that short into a movie, and the poster was gorgeous. So just giving a throw out to check out that page, check out his stuff. Super nice of him. I mean, that's like above and beyond.
Somebody posted on my page about it because they thought it was me, and then I tagged you.
Yeah, it wasn't
the
writer, but it must have been his like buddy
a
or
friend
something.
Yeah. And I was like, "How could you confuse us?" And he's like, "Oh, you guys, sound the same."
You sound alike.
I
don't sound like a Kiwi. Get out of here.
New Zealand.
Apparently, I don't either.
I'm the one without the accent.
My accent's faltering, but anyway, that was really cool, and that makes me. The cool thing is, for someone who's like finding it difficult to read books these days, it's a real motivator when somebody the writer sends it to you.
Yeah, you gotta.
And we'll have to get to read one of Aaron's books at some point. Aaron
I know.
Samo.
Yeah.
Aaron Dries.
All the way in Samo, where they probably have sharks.
Yeah.
Actually, I've been like neck deep in the Meg series. I just finished the first one, and I'm now starting into the second one, and they're fascinating. I'm just loving them. So.
Yeah.
So it's a whole series of books.
Oh my God, there's like 5 of them now.
I've been reading Jaws, the original, which isn't good, but I will get into the sequel books when we get into that topic. I have a lot to say about those.
I always wonder how that happens because, like, if you've read the original Forrest Gump book, it's just not that good. It's a completely different beast. I mean, like, he's not charmingly befuddled.
But if you actually look
icky.
through film history, it's always better to adapt a subpar book and make it exceptional with cinema. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you have a great book, people are trying to be too faithful to it, and then it's very difficult, I think, to adapt cinematically things that work on the page, or like The World According to Garp or whatever. It's like good movie, but not as great as the book because it's like on paper it's perfect.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Tough.
I mean, in terms of Jaws, because the character of Brody is not really at all like Roy Scheider, and it's the same thing with Psycho. Norman Bates is like a bald, fat, kind of old.
Weird.
That's how it is in Forrest Gump, where he's not just kind of, charmingly lower IQ, like he's like not coherently mentally there.
Yeah.
And he's very overweight and he's very kind of gross. And,
but it's charming in the movie.
Yeah.
And it's the same, you need a Spielberg or a Hitchcock to be like, that doesn't work for me cinematically, but Tony Perkins, now we're talking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I don't know. Those are interesting.
Yeah, that
decisions.
is quite an amazing choice to make the All-American Boy choice for Psycho. That's really what made it work.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure the
At
shock
that
of that
time.
initial viewing must have been outrageous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
TV, you were watching.
I binge watched Salem. I went ahead and watched the first 3 episodes of True Detective again, and I have
The first season or the new one?
the new one.
Are they up to the third
she
already?
They're up to the
loves
third.
it.
I
God.
have faltered so much. Like the first episode, I was like, oh my God, what is this? By the second episode, I was kind of intrigued because they entered a house where things started to take a turn. And then the third episode, I was just so bored again. Like, I don't know if I can keep going with this.
Yeah, you know, Colin Farrell's awesome, actually. He's the only character I'm, like, warming to. Because at first I was like, oh, it's Colin Farrell with a mustache, and I'm not really. But by now, I'm like, he's the only one I even want to watch. And what's his name? Vince Vaughn's good, but he's that bad.
But he's very kind of standard gangster guy. He's amusing, and he does it well.
Who's the guy from Battleship who was the lead, and he's a big actor. Everyone likes the young, good-looking guy.
Taylor Kitsch.
Right? This guy in this show just totally, he's the biker guy. Totally takes me out of it. Rachel McAdams kind of takes me out
boring.
of it. It needs to do something really interesting for me to really go all in. I'll keep watching because I'm interested in what will happen, but I agree. It definitely hasn't got the weird metaphysical dark hook that the first one had.
The only thing that had me slightly there is they were talking about this town, which is apparently based off a real town in East LA, which is so corrupt that the city had to go in and disincorporate the town because it just got to be so corrupt. And the majority of it seems to be centered around that town. But at this point, we're just learning about like metro rail lines and corruption in water municipalities.
There's also I'll say about TV, which is rare. The first season, did you ever see it?
I did. Okay. I didn't like it as much as everyone else. I thought it was good television and good acting, but I didn't like go crazy for it like everyone else.
But what is good about it, what can't really be argued, is because it's made by two people, the writer and the director, and I think that's something that this episode was already directed by different. First two were by Justin Lin, and now it's a different director, and it's not that you can really tell the difference, but there's something about that and the fact that there's too many characters. The first one being you're focused on two people.
Yeah.
And I really think that worked. And this one, I'm just like, wow, there's all these storylines to get through, you know?
And the characters all seem really flat, like, except for Colin Farrell.
Yeah, Colin at least has something going on.
He's the only one who has any type of dynamicness to him. The rest of them are all just very, like,
and it's very
I'm
Lynch
pissed off and smoke a lot. Yeah.
There's a lot of Lynch, like, almost too much, like, where you're like, I kind of see you're just trying to be, like, to the point where it's not that fun to me. But we'll see. I might turn around. I will say this. I was a little, for me, a lot of people disagreed with me on Twitter, but when I said that last couple of Hannibals were a little, but the last one was fucking awesome.
Which one? The
very most recent.
I think I'm going to disagree with you, actually.
The end with the fighting?
That's the only good moment of that.
Okay, well, I loved it by the end. I was like, by the last 10 minutes, I was like, yes.
Well, and here's my beef. It's not even beef. I started talking to Andrew Cash about this on Facebook a little bit because I feel that because everyone wants to save Hannibal so badly that nobody will dare talk negatively about it. And I'm just not, there's something off about this season.
I agree so far there has been,
isn't right. And that last episode, there's a big fight sequence at the end. We won't tell you with who. That's amazing.
No, everything towards the end kind of put the things together, I thought. You know?
But that whole episode was just a literal remake of Hannibal, the movie, but down to the dialogue.
Yeah, pretty much.
To the point I'm kind of like, all right, here it is. Guts inside or out. All right. You know what I mean? It's like there was no surprise element to it. And the thing that I found fascinating about the show is that they borrow elements from all the books and do it in a completely different way that I'm always surprised. But again, I was just like, I'm watching a remake of something that's like literally almost an entire hour, except for that fight at the end, was the movie.
I will say, spoiler if you haven't watched season 2. If you're not a Hannibal person, I'm going to just talk for a couple seconds. I think one of the problems with the season is that people didn't die.
Oh, yeah.
You ended the end of second season with literally 4 characters on their back covered in blood and nobody died. Yeah. And I feel like it's kind of suffering the same problem that I felt about True Detective, which is too many characters.
Yeah.
I don't actually care about all of you. I care about
all of them
Hannibal.
back.
I care about the guy chasing Hannibal. And I don't mind when other people come in.
Some of them could have stayed dead. No,
sometimes there's just too much going on. And so I still really believe, I don't think it's bad TV. You know,
no, not at all.
It's a little dull, maybe. Like just a little slower.
And I know they're going to get to Red Dragon soon. And there's still another
I believe
half.
it's going to end, like the last 6 or so will probably be like just amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure of it. And
I don't believe it's getting picked up. I think it's done.
Oh, yeah, Fuller tweeted that both Amazon and Netflix turned it down.
And that the actors would have to be released from contracts. So
I doubt anybody's going to pick it up at this point.
I don't know who else there would be.
And I told you about this last time, but I think Michael Pitt not being Mason Verger is a huge miscalculation. I don't like that new guy at all.
Did Michael Pitt just not want to do it?
I have no idea what his beef is.
Because he was awesome.
He was so good.
He was like a weird David Lynch. He was trying to,
He was doing something really weird and interesting and unique, and now the new guy that took over for it, granted he's in makeup.
And he's a good actor. And
he's a good actor, but he's just doing a Gary Oldman imitation. And that's what I liked about Michael Pitt is he wasn't doing Gary Oldman at all.
No, he did his own.
He's doing his own thing. So it's weird. I know people like that. They're like, oh, he's doing like Gary Oldman. I was like, all right, I mean, that's the thing. You can like it. Yeah, that's my problem. I feel like we've seen way too much of this new season.
That's why I keep saying the best thing about the show is when we're not familiar with it. And that's why I keep saying if they did do another season, I want it to be set after everything we know.
Yeah,
because then it'd be like, oh, cool. What would you do with Hannibal if Hannibal's still out there?
Yeah.
Like anything. I mean, it's fascinating. But still good TV. I still hope it gets saved. But I agree with you. I don't know about if people are being too soft. I can't speak for them, but I know what you mean. And
I haven't seen a negative word about it at all.
Yeah.
And I find that like a little weird. Like, really? Nobody has any problem with anything?
Well, I mean, I said that. Is it just me or that? Like 2 episodes ago, or is this just too slow? And everyone tweeted
Jumped
at me
on you?
saying, no, that was the best one of the whole thing. I was like, really? I was bored.
Well, I agree with you.
The Japanese stuff with the girl, I'm like, I'm bored. That's like the prequel stuff, right?
Yeah.
That first movie, that terrible movie with him as a kid.
Hannibal Rising.
I'm just
stuff.
sitting over here eating potatoes.
She's like, what?
Becca's like, I'll watch it someday.
Eat some chips.
Well, just so you know, no one died. There you go. Spoiler.
Pretty soon you'll be able to marathon all 3 seasons with no problem.
Yeah. It's pretty funny. But anyway, we will get to sharks and we will get to unmade movies.
Sharks!
Just a second.
Sharks!
And Star Wars soundtracks on shark movies that aren't allowed. Welcome back. We are here with a great dude who I mostly am getting here because I just think he's a good dude. And he once had a conversation with me when we were having coffee about his interest in Sharksploitation. He also did one of my favorite movies last year. He was the writer-producer, I believe, of Jodorowski's Dune, Stephen Scarlata.
Holy smokes. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Well, make sure you get in nice and close to the microphone as your friend.
Kind of just
we want to hear every word.
Let's start with Jodorowsky's Dune because I've never really had much of a conversation with you, except that you had the Bible book about it. But how did you? Because I know you're a real researcher of like unknown and lost films. How did it start with you knowing a story about that Jodorowsky was meant to have made this film, and you just started researching, or?
Yeah, I discovered Jodorowsky in the 90s and became a huge fan of his. And during the early moments of the internet, I was always researching Jodorowsky, and then I came across that he did Dune. And this was like early 2000s, late 1990s. So I started just researching it. I wasn't thinking about doing a documentary. It was just like, I was obsessed. Like the fact that Jodorowsky was about to make a movie with worms. I was like,
and Pink Floyd or whatever it was. I remember that.
Yeah, it was like, I was blown away because to rewind, when I was a kid, I loved Star Wars. And when Dune was coming out by David Lynch, it was like a big deal. It was supposed to be the next Star Wars. And I remember like renting it and taping it on beta and watching it and not understanding it, but I thought I was supposed to like it, so I watched I watched David Lynch's Dune like 100 times.
Oh, wow.
Like when it was on HBO, I watched it. I watched it on tape.
Trying to get it, like, I'm supposed to like this, right? I'm going to keep watching
I
it.
still don't get that movie at all.
Yeah, I still, to this day, have no idea what's happening.
The Baron scenes are great.
The heart plug scenes. It's. I mean, there's a lot of David Lynch in that movie. You know, it's really surprising. And then it wasn't until I was in film school, and the film school teacher said that it was a terrible movie. I was like, wait, are you kidding? I thought that movie was awesome, and everyone like laughed at me. And that's the first time I realized Dune's not good, but I love it.
By the way, people, there was a time where being a geek wasn't as cool. Pre-Comic-Con.
So I was obsessed with Dune, and then I discovered Jodorowsky because I rented Santa Sangre because I couldn't find. I was out of Argento movies, and I saw Claudio Argento's name on the box, and I rented it.
That's right.
Blew my mind, and then I started researching Dune like crazy. And I was at the library, and then I started coming across, like, little did I know at this moment, like, Cinefantastique did a whole freaking spread on it. I just was starting from scratch, going to the library. And then eventually I came across a fanzine with some storyboard images in an interview with Dan O'Bannon. And then from just collecting everything around 2006, I approached Frank Pavich. We just did a movie in the 90s called New York Hardcore. And then for years, we were trying to get another movie made. After New York Hardcore, we were trying to make a straight edge movie. We were trying to follow, at the time, Penelope Spheres. You know, she did like Decline, and then she did Suburbia. So we're like, we're going to do NYC, and then we're going to do a straight edge movie. You know, so we wrote this like crazy movie about straight edgers rescuing animals from a lab. It was like it was a heist movie.
Wow!
But we just.
I feel like I don't know you.
I'm looking up New York Hardcore right now.
Yeah, are you from New York originally?
I'm from Long Island.
Oh, so am I.
Yeah.
You look so familiar. I think I know you from in Morningside. The shirt you're wearing, is that a band from?
No, actually, that's a Phantasm shirt. But it sounds like a hardcore band.
I feel like, man.
It's
you might have.
Smokes,
There's been a few Long Islanders in the seat.
I know.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I grew up in Farmingdale.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I moved up. Yeah, and I met Frank Pavich. He was from New York, and that's when we hit it off in film school. Made New York hardcore, and then tried to make the straight edge movie, but it kept falling apart. And then I approached him in 2006 about doing the Dune doc, and then it took our long journey trying to get it made,
How do you obviously the key to getting that movie made is getting Jodorowsky's blessing or agreement to be interviewed. How did that end up happening?
Frank Pavich found his acting agent eventually, which was strangely enough, and went through him, and it took him a long time to get back to us. And then fast forward to 2011, we finally it was at this time David Carradine passed away, Dan O'Bannon passed away, and at the end of 2011, Jodorowsky finally agreed to do it. And next thing you know, 2 months later, we were in Paris interviewing him. It was just fast and really surreal.
Oh, so you were there?
Yeah, I was.
I can't even imagine being in the room with that guy.
Yeah, it was insane.
Powerful.
Is he as intense as he seems on camera?
The first time we met him, it was just hanging out at his house, just getting to know him really quick.
Oh my God,
he was
what's
very
his house
cool.
like?
Oh, it wasn't a house, excuse me. It was like an apartment in France.
Okay.
It was,
nothing big, just an apartment.
Sorry.
From what you see in the movie, that's what it's kind of like, just filled with books.
Oh, okay.
And the funny thing was, I was going through his DVDs, and then I saw a DVD of Cradle to the Grave with DMX and Jet Li. I was like, hey, this guy likes cool movies. It was, and then we started going there for interviews. Funny. And the funny thing was, the first time we interviewed him, because there was a documentary called Constellation Jodorowsky. We didn't want it to look like that.
Yeah,
we wanted we wanted to look a little bit more classier, so we asked his assistant if we could move some of his books, and the assistant said, yeah. So, as in the movie, the way you see him shot, we moved those books, and Jodorowsky came out and saw us moving his stuff and freaked out at us and yelled at us and stormed off. And eventually he came back into the room and sat down and did an interview with us. It was really scary. We felt really bad, as our hero, and he's yelling at us. But he ended up giving us the best interview of the whole.
It's got this real emotional core to it. Yeah,
interview
all
ever.
for moving his books.
Yeah, because you're moving my stuff.
Maybe it's good. Maybe you unsettled something in him. That he always makes quotes about pebbles in the shoe and whatnot. But I find that to be the cool thing about your movie is it wasn't just about Dune. It's about this guy who had these incredible quotes throughout. But I'm curious. One of the legacies of the film, especially for us horror nerds, was the alien connections. That this film laid the groundwork of the entire team who would go on to create what we know as Alien. How early in your research did you know that, or is that something that took a while to emerge?
It took a while to emerge that for me, actually. I didn't realize until a little bit later on during the research, to tell you the truth. And then when I started figuring that out, because then it started dawning on us how to end the movie finally. It was like, oh, now we know how to end this film. Because at one point we had it was like a Michael Mann movie. We had 4 endings. And so we had to we had them hanging out in the park, and, him and Sado, and we had to cut that out. We had to just, we had a whole section on how his comics influence movies. We had to cut all that out.
Did you have the scene where he drinks mojitos? Yeah. Not that Michael Mann. Wrong Michael Mann. And so, obviously, did you guys expect the attention that? Because I feel like he's such a cult figure that for me, I remember when I opened Jump Cut, the first poster up on the wall was my original El Topo. But I remember 90% of people who came in would not know what that particular film was at that time. And then the DVDs and Blu-rays started coming out, and he became a little more known. But he's still not huge. And yet that film seemed to get a really good release, and people seemed to really respond to it. Even I knew people didn't know who he was when they went to it, and they loved the film. So
wasn't that one of the big cult movies that started the Midnight Circus?
Oh yeah, it is. That and Razorhead and Pink Flamingos.
Yeah, I feel like the most modern younger audiences, people that are into movies now, don't know who he is. I think a lot of people probably came to your doc not knowing him at all, and then going backwards to discover his films.
I think that is the case, because when I was trying to pitch this, or when the long process of making this doc, when people were asking me, what are you working on? I'd say Jodorowsky's Dune. They thought I was talking in another language. Not only the fact that you know who Jodorowsky was, a lot of people didn't know what Dune was, surprisingly too, which kind of shocked me.
Well, Dune was definitely not this generation. As a book, it has not been. It was of a certain time, because I think it dealt with like a lot of things and even new agey ideas that were just hitting at that time. I've never been a Dune guy. I didn't understand it. All I knew, I'm kind of like you. I was an early Jodorowsky fan. I remember there was one website when the internet first started where you could read about all the stuff, and they would have places you could kind of buy the tape down the bottom. I can't remember what it was called.
Was that the symbol that grows?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and it was like a surrealist site and had a really basic web design. But I was like you. I was kind of obsessed by it. And then when I finally got to see Santa Sangre, and if this doesn't sound like we're talking about horror, really, I believe it's one of the best horror movies ever made. If you haven't seen that one, like put it top of your list. It's like, yeah, it's just an amazing movie. Like,
like Claudio Argento produced it, and strangely enough, when you watch it, like those POV shots of the stabbing, they're
very like Dario. Yeah.
I
very
remember
much.
we watched Santa Sangre. It was like a dare in my high school with all of the geeks to watch it, and it was, oh my god, you haven't seen it yet, you have to see this. And of course, it's like fucked up as hell and really disturbing. And Holy Mountain, I remember watching in high school as well.
Holy Mountain has some
that
really
one's
amazing
even
pieces.
more disturbing because it's got all the weird animals in it.
What's up? I mean, I don't want to stay on this because we have so many cool topics, but I do want to ask you, like, to explain to people why, because I always think this is interesting, why Jodorowsky's films were so hard to get, well, especially Holy Mountain and El Topo in the 90s until they got re-released. The Alan Klein relationship. Could you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, he was supposed to do, after Holy Mountain, the story of O for Alan Klein, and he turned it down.
That like kinky fetishy one? Okay.
Yeah. And when he turned that down, he upset Alan Klein, and then that's when his movies got like almost impossible to find. Like
Alan Klein's the Beatles manager of the White Album, and that's where all the money came from John Lennon for Holy Mountain, right?
Oh, right.
Like $10 million.
He was a big fan.
Big fan, but I guess, and also I heard Alan Klein hated Holy Mountain and was just like, fuck you, I'm not going to release your movies ever again or whatever.
Yeah, then they were almost impossible to find. Like, we had to get, like, Japanese Laserdisc versions of them. Like, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why Holy Mountain was so disturbing when we watched it, because the videotape quality was so horrible.
Yeah.
And all the fuzziness, because it was Japanese Laserdisc, all the, pubic regions are fuzzed out. It was just, it was hard to listen to and it was hard to watch. But when you watch the Blu-ray now, you kind of have a different experience of it. I mean, it's actually a quite amazing film. I did this podcast called Projection Booth, and we...
I love them.
Yeah, they're great guys. We like dissect that movie. And because when I was a kid, I thought it was disturbing and not when I was a kid. When I first saw it as a teenager, I thought it was disturbing and freaky. But now watching it, I'm like, wow, it's a totally different feeling of that film.
I really wish he had done Story of O. Yeah. Because, I mean, that movie, it's supposed to be kind of sexy, I guess, but everything that he does, even when Jodorowsky's trying to be sexy, it's really not that sexy. Yeah. So
I'm scared to know what that would have been.
I really wanted to. I want to see that just because I want to see what it would have turned out like.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, sorry.
No, I'm just curious in terms of Jodorowsky's Dune. Like, the one thing that I think a lot of people talk about after they see it, and now that it's kind of had this life and people have discovered it. What's his name? Who's the guy that directed Drive? Nicholas. I can never remember.
Griffin.
He even says in the movie, like, I've seen Jodorowsky's Dune. Like, he explained it to me, or whatever. But I see it, and I'm just like, can't they do an animated version now? I feel like that's the logical, like, all right, well, they can't make the movie that he wanted to make, but like, he's got all the storyboards and stuff.
Moebius could have drawn it, right? Moebius, and it could have been amazing.
Like, has there been any discussions on the heels of your documentary about making a version of it, whether it be a graphic novel or an animated film or something?
I know there's a lot of talk about releasing the book, and then the director of the Congress came out like last year. He wanted to do an animated version of it, and that kind of disappeared. There's a couple of people that are interested in doing it. I just wonder what the rights are like with Dune and what now Moebius passing and about,
Right, I didn't realize he'd passed it on. Yeah. And Giger just passed.
And Giger,
everyone's dropping in.
So it must. So I wonder with rights right now, it might be a little difficult to make. But I hope so in the future. I mean, I'd still love to see it. I mean, I've seen the storyboards a million times, but it's nothing like I would love. I mean, it would be weird. I mean, it'd be like Beyond Yellow Submarine strange if they turn that into an animated movie. But I mean, I hope they will. I mean, but as of right now, I don't think it's going to be possible.
Were there many crazy Dan O'Bannon stories? Because I always hear, like, if, I remember Yusna telling me some crazy, he was talking about Giger and O'Bannon, and he was like, everyone knew Giger was the big opium addict and blah, blah, blah. And that one time he was with Giger, and Giger was just like, oh, that Dan O'Bannon's a real drug fiend. And he was like, oh, shit.
Unfortunately, I didn't hear much. I mean,
I guess he was dead by the time.
Yeah, that it was heartbreak, because O'Bannon is like a hero of mine, and that was what really pushed us to make that's what really pushed us even further to make the doc, was after he passed. It was just like, we got to make this now.
Isn't there a version? One of his movies I've been trying to track down for a long time is that Resurrected movie. But isn't there a version that's like a director's cut version out there that's really hard to find?
It was supposed to. There might be a chance it might be getting re-released, because the only version you can watch now is on YouTube. There is a director's cut. I've talked to Diane about it, I think, once. I believe she has a copy of it, but she's holding on to it.
It's Lovecraftian, right?
Yes.
I remember. Have you seen that one?
This is an O'Bannon movie?
Yeah, he directed after Night of Return of the Living Dead.
No, I didn't know about it.
And you've probably seen the cover, like if you see the image, but it's one of those ones that I've heard bad things, but then if you see the director's cut, it's apparently this really cool movie.
I believe it screened once at the the director's cut, and it got a lot of positive word of mouth. Those were around the same time like Screamers came out, that Peter Weller movie he wrote.
That movie.
I do too.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's a fun little
Cool
sci-fi flick.
See, this is why I wanted him on, because you know about movies that maybe don't exist or are hard to find. So before we go to main topic, I want to touch base, like, beyond Jodorowsky's Dune, on what are some other films, because I know you've been developing certain ideas, and there's there's weird ones like we've talked about here, like Tobe Hooper was meant to do Spider-Man. Dante was going to do Creature from the Black Lagoon.
What's nuts about that too is, like, Tobe Hooper was supposed to do Spider-Man, and then the guy who did Friday the 13th Part 4 and Invasion USA, was it
Joe Zito?
Zito.
Yeah, he was supposed to take over Spider-Man after.
Oh, yeah, that would have been great.
Yeah, I have a whole article.
There would have been like smashing glass and a dog.
Somebody told me, like, we just watched Superman 3 together. Somebody told me Wes Craven was original director for Superman 4, and that he didn't get along with Christopher Reeve, and that's why he left the project. And I'm 99% sure that was from Craven at a Q&A.
Wow.
Ryan Turek backed me up, because I think it was one of your screenings.
Wow.
That sounds amazing, because I know with Superman 4, they actually shot extra footage that was supposed to be in Superman 5. Albert Pune was going to direct.
Did you see the Canon doc yet?
Yes.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
Oh, yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
I understand you can only fit so much in there, but there's so much more. I'm dying to know.
Yeah. I mean, that's the period we all grew up. But are there any other big, interesting ones that have particularly obsessed you?
I got to think for a second. That's like my favorite topic. The one I obsessed over was it E.T. 2.
What?
Oh, God.
I didn't even know there was supposed to be a 2.
Oh, yeah. It was like, yeah, it's really weird. Because, he was supposed to do, Night Skies? And then Night Skies kind of turned into Poltergeist and E.T. And then when E.T. was a hit, he wrote a treatment for E.T. 2, and he was going back to those roots. It's pretty much like...
Who's he, Spielberg?
Yeah, so Spielberg wrote this treatment.
I love this stuff.
And it's like, it's Elliot in his room, and he has like a transmitter from E.T., and he's dying for E.T. to come back. He really misses him. And what's really strange is that his mom is dating Peter Coyote's character. And one night when they're out on a long date, Elliot discovers that there's something in the forest, and him and his friends from the first movie, they ride out in the forest and they find a UFO. But all these aliens come out of it, and they're all excited. But these aliens, one has a dagger, and they all have sharp teeth. They kidnap the kids. They bring them on the spaceship, and the rest of the movie, no joke, is torture. Like, all the kids are getting tortured.
Oh my God.
For
torture porn film.
It is. It's harder.
Shit.
It's bad shit. Like, the kids are getting tortured, and Elliot gets it the worst. Elliot is tortured so horrible that he blackouts. He blacks out, and his screams are so eternal that E.T. hears them. And then E.T. ends up coming back down to Earth. Movie. Yeah, and he saves the kids from the aliens.
Oh, my God.
Reprograms the ship to go back, and then he hugs everyone, and then he leaves. And that was E.T. 2. And like,
and you know what's funny? That you saying E.T. 2 made me laugh, and then I realized, like, it's very rare to not have a sequel to such an iconic movie.
So
like, was there other talks of them doing sequels like that beyond that treatment? Do you know for that?
That's the only one I know.
That's interesting.
Wow.
And, they just thought it was too dark.
Oh yeah, it's a 10-page treatment, and
But Eli Roth could knock that out of the park. Eli Roth's E.T.
2
after Meg, E.T.
E.T. 2.
So a couple of years ago, I became obsessed with Grizzly 2, and I decided I was going to do this big section on it in Fango, and so I started hunting down everyone who was involved in it, and I literally have like 100 pages worth of interviews from people who worked on Grizzly 2.
Oh wow!
And
the missing Grizzly, right?
Yeah, and we ended up not running a lot of it because a lot of it was just like, that guy's a crook, and then I'd go interview that guy. That guy's an asshole. That bitch didn't know what she was doing, and that was like every single interview, and it just turned into like people who hate each other.
Was that the? Is Grizzly 2 the one that like George Clooney filmed some like?
And Helen Hunt's
Helen Hunt,
in it.
Charlie
Grizzly
Sheen
2, the concert.
But they didn't have the actual Grizzly.
And they had actual actors like George Clooney. Like,
but David Packard's version's complete, where he puts himself as the Grizzly.
They built like an 8-foot grizzly for that movie, right?
Yeah, but it didn't work.
And
or
it didn't work. And so you can
Hmm.
actually see scenes from the footage, the actual film that they shot with like Helen Hunt and George Clooney in it on YouTube. There's like leaked scenes of it, but the Grizzly is not in it. And when they do have the Grizzly, it's just like standing there.
But that's not Girdler, right? Girdler didn't direct that one, right?
Yeah, and the story that I heard was that they didn't pay the special effects team to animate the Grizzly, and so they literally just propped it up and were like, we'll get it in post, and then the movie just fell apart. So.
Yeah, that's another whole different topic. It's movies that were like unfinished, which is weird. There can't be that many, but there's got to be a bunch. But are there any other ones that you've been obsessed with over the years?
Oh yeah, I mean one of my favorite movies is Neon Maniacs.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I'm like
because I know one of the producers from that. He works with us a lot at Fango.
Oh yeah, no, because I read about it first in Fangoria when I was a kid. I mean, when I was a kid, I got Fangoria magazine since I was like 10 years old. So everything I saw in that magazine, I had to rent, and I was obsessed with Neon Maniacs. I
don't think I've seen Neon Maniacs.
It's
the cover rings
set in Hollywood High School. Actually, I don't even know if it's supposed to be Hollywood High School, but it's filmed there. And it's kind of a group of mutants crawl out of the sewer, but they each have a theme. Like there's an Indian mutant and
there's a samurai, there's an archer, there's a guy with a knife. He's the slasher. He looks exactly like Jason in Part 2.
Yeah.
Oh, weird.
And there's on the poster I think it says like 12, but in the movie there's actually 14. But before they shot that film, when the option was about to lapse, the director of Shockwaves was going to direct it.
Oh, Kim Wiederhorn.
And it was going to have 30 killers.
Oh, wow.
And so that always boggled my mind. I've been trying to hunt down that script, the Neon Maniacs 30 Killers script.
Wouldn't he have it, Wiederhorn?
I could probably hook you up.
I would love to see.
And it's a very sad story, actually, because the director ended up killing himself right after the film.
Oh, wow.
Or I think back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to him so bad because that movie, since I was a kid, it's like obsessed. I've obsessed with it. You know, it's just like, it's so strange and it has such a weird vibe to it.
Well, you know, I don't know if you listened to our Bob Morawski episode, but he was telling us about Beyond the Beyond.
Yes.
And I'm so
might
bummed
be worth obsessing over.
Yes, I was at the end of the episode too. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, I must want to just talk to him about that because that is fascinating. You're like, oh shit, what would that have been?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
No one can get that script now. It's like
I had no idea about that. And then you guys had William Malone on. He was talking about like Dead Star, and that's one that that blows my mind because Giga designed the devil in that film. And then, like, in the 90s, I think when he found out he was fired, they released this weird press release, and they actually made that devil. And I was like, oh, my God, is that going to be in the film? But, you know, then Supernova, it turned into Supernova.
Yeah.
And then I think even Fango had, like, had the original effects of the creature on the cover. It's not even in the movie.
We've done that a couple of times. Like for Nightbreed, the character that's on the cover never made it into the movie. It's the guy with the hands coming out of his neck.
Right.
Yeah, and it's not even in the movie.
Then it's in the freaking director's cut.
Is.
He's like in the corner.
Yeah,
that was pretty amazing.
Are there other ones that you think would have been great movies? Like anything you've heard over the years, or you're like, oh shit, that would have been like the next big thing? Because I mean, the Tobe Hooper Spider-Man, I hear that and I go, that would have been bad.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of that would just be bad.
There's no way.
I mean, like, I love all the Alien 3s. And
of course,
at one point, they approached Clive Barker.
Oh,
that
I don't know.
I never heard that.
These kind of stories.
Right after
so much
Nightbreed.
bondage.
Yeah, they approached him, and then they approached, my favorite's like, they approached Rennie Harlan, and he wanted to take it back to the alien planet.
Right.
Which I thought was an excellent, and that was Harlan at his prime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that blows my mind. And the Wooden Planet version.
Yeah. We had Charles de
Lauzirika.
And he has that great documentary on the set where they even get Vincent Ward. And
just the fact that it was like swimming aliens in that one. And I mean, they would appear in part 4, but just that shot of like a rowboat and an alien swimming underneath.
Oh, and I like that idea that the orbit was just above your head. Like, that the sky, you could put your head up and see into space. I was like, oh, wow, that's such a visionary,
that's very cool,
image. But then you watch it, it's a pretty straight movie. Yeah. It's just a prison. I mean, I like Alien 3. It's fun, but
perfect segue into our shark topic. Just curious, was there ever, and I'm not talking about Cruel Jaws, but was there ever talk of a Jaws 5?
I mean, there was the U.S. Indianapolis Quint movie.
Right.
That's the one I know of. I have the VCD of Cruel Jaws 5.
Right. Which is not really.
We'll get to that one after we talk about the other Jaws.
But,
of course.
I think that's the only one I'm aware of. I mean, the one I was, Eli Roth's making Meg now.
Yeah, we were just talking about.
When it was announced in the 90s, I was so excited about it. They actually shot the opening. They didn't shoot. I mean, they did it in CG of the Megalodon coming out of the water and grabbing a T-Rex and dragging him into the ocean. For years, I was trying to find that footage.
Which, have you seen Jurassic World?
So wait,
just movie footage?
Yeah, Meg's been in production for a while, like before
in the
Rob
90s,
took it?
John DeBont was going to direct it.
It's from like 97?
I say everyone's name wrong. Excuse me. I butcher names. No, it was around 97. Yeah, it was Gene Hackman, Rene Russo, and...
Get out of here.
Of course it was Rene Russo.
Oh my God, if that had come out, it would have like made my high school years.
It would have been... I was losing it because that's when... Because we had that awesome summer of Deep Blue Sea and Lake Placid.
I'm like a huge aquatic horror guru, and so that would have just like made my high school year.
Yeah, she got a girl boner.
I know, I kind of do, guys.
Then it got canceled, and then they were going to make Deep Blue Sea 2 about
what?
Yeah, the shark. There was more sharks, so
do they still have Alzheimer's or have Alzheimer's?
Well, they make it to the shore, and right when they make it to the shore of this resort, an earthquake happens, and a hotel falls over into the ocean, and so the sharks entered the hotel and start eating people.
Oh my God, that's badass.
LL Cool J was going to return
with his parrot, I hope.
Yeah. Awesome. And then, strangely enough, they did. What was it? It was one of the Malibu shark attack with William Forsythe. Mm-hmm. They ripped it off. They ripped it off of that.
Wow.
With goblin sharks.
Was I can't remember. Was Deep Blue Sea like a big hit that they were thinking?
Unfortunately, it wasn't. That's why I think Meg got pulled and the sequel didn't happen.
Because there was a couple. Because like Virus came out then, which was another kind of aquatic
horror. 90s, yeah.
That was the Stephen Sommers period where he was making a lot of movies.
There was a couple of like.
Let's go back to Sharksploitation. When did you become interested in? I mean, because I only know this because we had one conversation that I let him do the top 5.
Right, I remember that
because he suddenly told me he wanted to make a film at some point.
Top 5.
Yeah, a lot of people gave you some heat in there
for Orca. I know.
Orca is great, but it's it doesn't feel that exploitive though. Orca feels kind of like its own kind of Oscar-y type movie to me. It's not. I don't know. It doesn't feel like
it wouldn't exist without Jaws,
of course
right?
Not. Yeah. So where does your interest come from? Did it come from Jaws? Did it, was it when you were a kid?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I mean, I don't remember watching my first horror film, but I was always obsessed with horror. My dad told me it was Horror Express. And then my dad took me to see Jaws twice in the theaters. It must have been during the re-release, because back in the 70s and 80s, before cable movies were re-released.
Yeah.
So I saw Jaws 2 definitely on the re-release. And I was obsessed after I saw it. Like, I kept... drawing fins everywhere. I couldn't go in the pool. I was obsessed with that film. And then so when Up From the Depths would come on HBO and Piranha and Tentacles, I would just watch the hell out of them.
Yeah.
And it just became my favorite horror genre. It's just, creatures from the deep. And
could anyone swim after seeing? Like, I'm just genuinely curious. Did that affect?
I can't swim to begin with.
Okay,
I'm terrified.
I mean, even in pools, because I remember being in a pool and looking for shadows.
My parents
really affected us.
My parents have a big pool in our backyard. They've since taken it out and put it in a lovely garden. But when I was a kid, they had a big pool, and the maple tree right next to it cast this shadow that looked like a perfect shark snout. And even though that I knew that shadow was not a shark snout, I would not swim in the shadow. I would only swim on the sunny side of the pool, because the shadow was where the shark was.
I miss that feeling. I really miss that feeling. I mean, I know you don't want to feel scared, but man, that was such a powerful feeling when you're young and things actually affected you, having to jump into your bed.
I mean, I still have that. If I'm in the ocean, and I mean, Marnie, my daughter, loves the ocean. We go at least like twice a month. And every single time I'm in there, as soon as something brushes my foot, it doesn't matter what it is. I jump 3 feet out of the water. I mean, like
you have to go deep though. I mean, I was swimming in this little lake in Australia about 2 years ago, and we swam. It's beautiful. It's this calm little, like, there's no ocean. It just felt like it's an inlet. And then we got home that night, and somebody told us there was a bunch of sharks in there that day. And I was just like, holy shit! Like, because that's a real. I mean, Australia is where the sharks are.
She goes down there.
They're in malls. They're in supermarkets.
See, where I'm from Virginia, we have. I showed you guys pictures before. We have what are called gar, and they get to like 6 feet in length. They're really weird. Fucked up looking. I'll get you a picture. Have you never seen gar?
No.
Oh my god! Why no one has made a horror movie about gar is beyond me.
I've never even heard of gars.
Alligator gar. They're what we have in Virginia.
Yeah, I know alligator gar.
Yeah, they're totally messed up.
So I feel like we don't need to spend as much on Jaws as its sequels.
The original. The sequels are
things
big.
that then spawn from Jaws.
Well,
so Jaws is its own conversation.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, Shark Week is upon us.
40th anniversary too.
40th anniversary. I watched Jaws for the 40th. A lot of people watch it for July 4th.
Yeah.
It's their July 4th go-to movie.
And it's a near perfect movie.
I was telling Elric this. I watched Jaws 2, which I've always loved ever since I was a little kid. I watched it a few days ago for the 4th of July. And don't misquote me by saying this. I think Jaws 2 is a better, more successful horror movie than the original is. The original is a masterpiece. It is just a great movie across genres. But I love Jaws 2 because it's a slasher movie in disguise. It's a slasher movie disguised as a summer blockbuster.
Right.
And I love it for that. You know, you've got the teens, you got the whole setup for it. It's very mean-spirited. And watching it this time, I just thought... who's the director again? The French guy?
Yeah, Schwartz.
Jeanette Schwartz.
Jeanette Schwartz. He's still directing TV.
Yeah, he directed a lot of TV.
He's been around for a long time.
I was really more impressed with the filmmaking of 2 watching it now than I ever have been before, because he was even saying in the making of, he's like, look, you can't get away with what you did in the first one. Like, it was a surprise. I mean, obviously, it was a lot to do with the fact that the shark didn't work, et cetera. He's like, we need to see the shark. We need to be in its POV. We need to do, like, all this sort of stuff.
Right.
And I find it terrifying that, you know, there's a little couple on a boat and you see this giant thing just underneath it. You're like, oh, my God. So
I think there's an argument to be made, you know, horror, the broad term, yes, Jaws is horror, but it's closer to things like The Birds. It's more like a suspense thriller, I feel like, first Jaws, whereas the sequel definitely is a horror movie. Film.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, it's a subtle, differentiation, but it is because you're not seeing the thing, and it's not really about the gore of the thing, it's more about the buildup of the thing. And that's much more what Hitchcock did. It was always about suspense, you know?
And it uses the killer POV shot. So the majority of it, while you're not seeing what's going on, you're seeing what it's doing.
Well, I think Jaws, the first one, started off as a straight up horror film because if you saw the original storyboards, I mean, you saw the shark in the opening scene attacking the girl, and there was supposed to be another scene with the guy on the boat and Jaws jumping out of the water and grabbing him. So you were going to see a lot more shark. So that's
interesting.
It would have been way more
Spielberg's,
of a horror. So because it didn't work, it's what turned it into such a gripping film. Because all those moments when the shark wasn't working was when they were writing those little scenes, those character moments. You know, they had so much time to ad lib in that first film. That's why it feels so natural, that movie.
Yeah.
Like Roy Scheider at the table with the kid, like that was all ad libbed while they were just waiting. They just had to keep shooting scenes.
Who's the dude who wrote Conan? I just totally blinked.
Oh, John Milius.
Yeah, Milius wrote the big passage for it, right? But a lot of people don't know that
so
about
them.
Well, I think they're pretty.
But I like Jaws 2 a lot. I think it's a solid sequel. I agree. It's like I love, all the kids like bunched up on the boats and just being attacked, and I love the scar on his face.
That's a great scene. He attacks a water skier really early on, and so the water skier gets pulled under and eaten, and then the other girl he jumps out on top of the boat, and the other girl just freaks out, and she's getting the gas, and she accidentally pours on herself, shoots the flare, and boom, they all blow up. And then for the rest of the movie, much like a Jason Voorhees type, he's got a scar across his face. He's badass looking.
It's a lot of character.
So I love it. I love it.
Even the scene with when Roy Scheider is driving by the shore and he sees the ski.
Yeah.
And then when he grabs it, there's a body attached.
Like
great little score.
That's
a good
Well, if you look at who directed them, because I watched 2, 3, and 4 because AMC was playing them.
Right.
And if you look at the directors, it's like a bit of a tell, because that guy who did 2 has directed a lot of stuff. The guy who did 3, which I personally, I didn't see in 3D.
Who did 3? I don't remember.
Well, it's the production designer. He never directed a film before, never directed a film after.
And you could probably tell us about
Ronald Dean, maybe?
It was supposed to be Joe Dante.
Was supposed to do Jaws 3.
Jaws 3 was going to be Joe Dante, and it was going to be a straight spoof called Jaws 3 People Zero.
Yeah.
But I don't know what happened to that.
And it's John Hughes wrote it, and the opening scene is Steven Spielberg taking off his robe and going swimming in his pool.
Oh my god!
And then he gets eaten by a shark.
That was what we almost had.
We're very lucky. I'm happy we got Jaws 3
and
over that one.
The guy who actually directed Jaws 3 is Joe Alves.
That's Joe Alves,
and he's a production, but he was on the other films. But to me, that's what's missing in that movie. I feel like there's a directorial flair that's not there. Now that said, if it was in 3D, I'm sure it's a lot of fun. But then number 4, we'll talk about it in a second. As a film,
wait to talk. I have it with me right here.
Well, no, but the director of that is the guy who made Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3 and other films, and he's a real director, Joseph Sargent. And so, we can skip 3 if you want. I mean,
skip it.
You like 3 though, right?
3 is definitely kind of the concept film. I mean,
it's for 3D.
It's all
3D.
I mean,
or just Jurassic World.
Jurassic World, there's a lot there.
There'd be no Deep Blue Sea without Jaws 3.
Right. But it's weird because this is the one franchise where both 3 and 4 are separate sequels to 2. Because Dennis Quaid is Michael, the son, in 3, but then they're like, oh no, let's take that back. Let's make Lance Guest Michael in part 4 instead.
I love his
and he's great as Michael in it.
But you saw 3 on 3D, right, as a kid?
Well, no, it killed me. I could not see it in the theaters as a kid in 3D. It was heartbreaking. But 10 years ago around, they did at the New Art a 3D festival. They played Friday the 13th Part 3 and Star Chaser.
Oh, cool.
And I took my wife, and we were the only ones in the theater watching Jaws 3D.
Oh, wow.
And it was the best 3D experience I've ever had.
Wow.
Because they put up their own, it was clear glasses. They put up another screen. And it was the scene in the beginning when the fish gets bit
and it comes right at you
in the head, literally it was in front of your face.
That's so
I've
cool.
never
but that's why it's so bad.
And Lee Majors
to watch it in all 3D because you're sitting there going, oh my god, everything is just designed.
My favorite's when he's approaching the glass.
He's
got a big smile on his face.
It's one of the worst things ever to not see in 3D. Ever.
That moment
is so bad because everyone's in slow motion and then
I YouTube that
like a cartoon
very regularly. And just them going in slow motion.
I feel like we could do a mashup where you just take their reactions and then you insert whatever you want to it. It's incredible. Actually, we should take the Grizzly from Grizzly and put that in that scene so they're all reacting.
That would work.
So let's skip 3. Go straight to the one that counts.
We talked enough about
Jaws the Revenge.
4 is great.
I think it's so much fun. To be honest, when I was a kid, 4 was kind of most accessible to me. I should be ashamed, but I'm going to call 4 my fave when I was a kid, just because it was the most fun for me.
I think also it was. I feel like it was a big HBO movie. I feel like it was the one we had the most access to.
Very adult. And when I was a kid, I didn't like it. I didn't understand it. And then seeing it this weekend, it's easily my second favorite. Next to Jaws. I really liked it. I was like, look, here's the thing. The acting's great. Everyone's good. Michael Caine's the patchiest, which I think's funny because he had just come off an Oscar and then he won a Razzie for it.
Right.
He's one of 2 actors in the history of cinema to go from an Oscar to a Razzie in 1 year, and the other was the guy from 3, Louis Gossett Jr.
Right. Wow. And the famous story with Michael Caine is always have you, because he missed the Oscars because he was doing Jaws the Revenge, and everyone's like, have you seen Jaws the Revenge? He's like, no, but I've seen the house it bought. Which is why,
No, but he's just patchy, but everyone else is so good because it's real serious. It's they really feel like real people, and the opening scene is just the opening 10 minutes is just like a dark
Except for
slasher.
the artist woman who welds thing and somehow affords a big house
She's
because
saucy.
I love that.
I love that love during the day.
Yeah, I love that for Lance Guest coming in being I've always wanted to make love to an angry welder.
But I liked the kids in it too.
Yeah.
I remember the banana boat scene, and for some reason
it's actually scary to think of a shark with pathology. That's what I like.
That's what you're telling me.
I kept thinking about it.
He saw me in my house the other day. He's just I liked it. He's like, I'm just going after him. I don't care. These people, man, I'm not going to get them.
That's the cool thing. There's a Jamaican in a pool, and it goes right by the Jamaican. It goes right by the blood, and it wants the guy. And I'm like, that's really cool. Of course, I didn't know why that was because it's based on a book. I'm letting Rob and the ghost of AJ Bowen.
Yes, AJ Bowen is a huge fan of all the Jaws movies, in particular The Revenge. Him and I are defenders of it. Now, before I bring up the context of the book, I just need to say the most confusing thing about it. I actually picked up this DVD yesterday, the DVD version. It's got the VHS ending, which I remember as a kid. Meaning Jaws the Revenge has 2 endings.
Yes.
The VHS ending is the one that makes no sense whatsoever.
Okay, can I just say I was watching it this weekend.
Yeah.
And I thought I blinked and missed the end of the movie.
It's edited
and it was
poorly.
like a weird explosion harpoon scene.
Yeah, it's like Jaws comes out of the water.
She has a flashback about Roy shooting.
And he says, the smile, you son of a bitch. And then in this version, which I consider it's the VHS cut or the UK version, all of a sudden, for no rhyme or reason, it's like you think Jaws gets hit by the tip, but then his head blows up.
It's really fucking bad.
And then it goes to the shot from the original movie.
Yeah, it's really terrible.
Sinking. And then Mario Van Peebles, Jake, literally floats up and is like, "Hey man, I'm still alive."
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
Yeah, that's
so
it
he
basically ruined the movie. But then today on YouTube, I watched the original ending.
You can watch the original
awesome.
theatrical, and the theatrical is awesome because he comes up out of the water and they just stab him.
Yeah, the front of the boat just
with the front of the It's
like gory. It's a gory death.
And then it breaks off, and you see a shot of him sinking with like the tip of the boat like sticking out of him. It's pretty awesome.
If you play the NES, I still play the NES.
Me too. I love that game.
I was obsessed with that. Those fucking jellyfish that went sideways. What the fuck?
Yeah.
But that's how you kill him in the game.
That is.
You have to stab him with the boat.
You have to make him stick out, you know, and then stab him.
And then you get the depth charges to make him come out. But that always drove me crazy because you had to get the sub. You had to like go from port to port to get the sub, and then once you had the sub, but if he touched you, you lost your sub.
Oh yeah, you lose the sub. The sub moves really fast, so it's easy to lose. But
fucking jellyfish.
Now the movie itself is kind of a mess as I was watching in terms of figuring out like why is this shark following him to the Caribbean or whatever.
Dude, question.
But the novelization, which I'm going to pick up tomorrow.
Yeah, you've got to read this now. Yeah.
AJ told me all about the novelization, and he says in the novelization, Hoagie, Michael Caine's character, was actually in the CIA, and Michael and Jake actually get their funding not from a grant but from a shady businessman who is actually a drug smuggler. And when they fall behind on payments, he hires a priest to do a voodoo curse on Michael and Jake, and it manifests itself as the shark. What? And that is why the shark
what would hurt your family the most, and it was a shark.
Exactly.
In the past.
What would hurt?
That makes so much more sense,
right?
But it would.
Now I like these supernatural elements.
What's cool about the book is that throughout the book, you actually you see the shaman's chants.
Oh,
yeah.
And
cool.
Like during the banana boat scene, the reason why it doesn't kill the kid is because it's like. It's this weird thing that the shark refuses to kill the kid, but it's going to go after all the adults instead. It's a cool book because it has like a cool windsurfer death in it. It has a lot more deaths in the book. I wish they made that into the movie. Because I think there's like another helicopter scene in it.
Who wrote the book? Do you know? It's not.
Yeah, because I'm looking at now.
Hank Searles.
Hank Searles.
Yeah.
And who also wrote the novelization for 2.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, like. So were these because Peter Benchley only did the original Jaws, right?
Yeah.
He didn't write any of his own sequels. He did other stuff.
No.
But this guy wrote the novelization for 2 and then The Revenge.
Yeah, it's weird because it's almost like you could feel the time in it. Like Miami Vice was big, so it almost feels like a Miami Vice type book.
Oh, yeah.
Where drugs would have worked.
Yeah,
drug smuggling.
Yeah, there's drug smuggling and, because that's why, like... It's a fun read. I recommend.
And yet the opening scene of the film is so different. Like the opening sequence is like a dark slasher. It's amazing.
Oh yeah,
I love the Amity
sequence. Takes place during Christmas.
Slasher.
The book starts the same way. Then once they get to the Bahamas, it kind of goes apeshit. The book, like they really.
I will say that
kill Sean in the opening of the book too.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's
there's a couple of similarities in the book. There's a few similarities in the movie and the book.
Well, go figure.
The weirdest thing is the girl welding.
Yeah.
Is a big part of and what she's welding. A big part. Like I don't think she doesn't realize she's welding a shark.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's having this battle
does.
with metal. Yeah,
the mother when she first enters, she looks at it and gives this fucking weird ass moment of the performance that's never explained.
Yeah, because it's not a shark in it.
Yeah.
It's like a big spray of metal.
But she's like creating in the book. There's a big scene with the mom and her while she's sculpting it, and she has like all these burn marks from the metal, and she's describing like she doesn't know what she's making. It's a very strange book. It's
a strange movie, but it's very
anybody listening, I bet you never would have thought that Jaws: The Revenge is actually an artsy, metaphoric voodoo movie in disguise.
Yeah. And you also wouldn't think all 4 of us would be defending. I'm kind of shocked that we all like.
Yeah,
we all
agree. We should have saved this for like drunken debates. Somebody hates it.
No, but I want to say Hoagie. There is an illusion that he might have been CIA because they ask. He goes, "What do you actually do?" Or something. How he goes, "I deliver laundry."
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh, okay." So he's definitely shady,
right.
And he has some experiences that are, either CIA or is a drug runner.
Because he's dealing with drug runners in the book.
Which would be cool. I mean, it's interesting. I don't know.
I love when Michael Caine comes out of the helicopter and it just pops up and he's like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah. No, he's good in it. He's just at the end. It's actually towards the end where he's the least effective. But Lance Guest is like an actor who I hadn't thought about. We saw what's the word?
Phases.
Late Phases, and there's this actor in it, and I'm watching the movie going, kind of familiar, but whoever it is, he's stealing this movie right now. He's amazing. Yeah. And I look him up, and it's The Last Starfighter. And this guy's so good looking, and like he's got so much hair. He's just like so different as he's aged.
He's aged, yeah.
But I'd love to have him as a guest at some point because he's got interesting work.
Halloween 2.
I love Halloween 2, yeah. So, all right, so we got through Jaws. That's the good one. What comes next after that? I mean, Orca, I guess?
But when was it? When did the Sharksploitation, was it after Jaws or after the sequels? When did everything start? The Italians and...
I think, was it Jaws? And then there was a couple of there was a TV movie called... It's interesting. There was a movie called Shark Kill. It was a TV film that came out a year later, which is similar to Open Water. These guys about to hunt a shark, and their dinghy gets run over by a giant yacht full of drunk people, so they're trapped in the middle of the ocean.
Oh, that's cool.
Battling
cool
off
concept,
a shark. It's a TV movie, and it's hard to find. And then there was like Jaws of Death, which is which is a guy that can control sharks, which is kind of now taking back to Jaws 4.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah, and also in Jaws 4, the book, besides the shaman that can control sharks, which is in Shark Kill, there's also like a windsurfer death, which is in like, Great White.
And Cool Jaws,
So it's a really weird mashup, that book, come to think of it. So we had some, Jaws of Death.
But what's the first cash-in? Like, we're going to make a ton of money because we're ripping off Jaws.
I think probably right after Jaws was, I think Orca and The Deep came out around the same time. Because I saw The Deep in the theaters. And I think The Deep was Peter Benchley also. So I think that was...
That's the octopus movie, right?
Nolte film, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And the giant squid.
Because the eel. Everyone remembers the eel.
Oh, yeah, the eel. Excuse me. I'm saying squid.
No worries. So today I watched...
I think, too. 77, I think was Tentacles.
I watched 1969 Sam Fuller's Shark, which was kind of shocking because I didn't know Sam Fuller made a shark movie.
Oh, with Burt Reynolds?
Yeah. And then I read all this stuff that was like, Jaws totally ripped it off. And I don't think it did, but I just wanted your opinions.
I don't think so. I heard weird things about that film. Someone actually died during the making of that film.
Oh,
yeah. That's a rumor I heard.
Died by a shark?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
The whole thing plays like a nature documentary. Honestly, it was quite boring. Actually, I'm sorry for that guy who died, but
I haven't seen it since like a million years ago.
It looked like a bad Jacques Cousteau film.
Yeah, what I don't like is I don't like the films that have like just the shark. Like stock footage of a shark. Then it cuts to a guy in water and there's blood. I think, was it Joe D'Amato's one?
Well, come on, Cruel Jaws does do a lot of that.
No, but you actually see a lot of fake shark in that.
Yeah.
They don't shy away from showing the prosthetic shark. That's what I love about that film.
All right, I want to hear you talk about the exploitation ones, and because you were the first person who really even made me aware of Cruel Jaws. I'd never even heard of it. But let's start with Last Shark, and because that film's still not allowed to be shown, right?
The Last Shark?
The Last Shark was Great White.
Also known as Great White.
It was the first
the poster on my Facebook page this week. It's got that awesome poster of the girl on the raft with the shark.
That one I know. I confused them, though.
That poster.
But what's the story behind that, and why did it get banged? For people who don't know anything about it.
Because what's strange about that, it didn't come out until years later, I think 82. I actually I know a friend who saw it in the theaters. And it only lasted 2 weeks in the theater. I read some Variety reviews on it when it first came out, and people were pissed watching it in the theaters because it's an exact ripoff of Jaws. It's the same exact movie with different actors.
And Vic Morrow even plays Quint.
Vic Morrow plays Quint. There's an incredible scene when he's just like, "I just want the head." It's dead. He's like almost repeating like Quint's lines in a strange way. It's very Italian. Like, there's a scene when people fall in the water and they're getting eaten, and the Italian media needs to shoot the footage of them being murdered and shit like that. It's not very good, but it means a lot to me because it was the first movie I put like the Indiana Jones fedora on and had to hunt down. I read about it in Deep Red magazine, and I didn't know it existed because it came out for 2 weeks. Universal stopped it. It played 2 weeks in the theaters. You can actually find newspaper ads from it, and I think TV spots on YouTube. And it was just pulled, and it's still.
But overseas, it would have been able to play, right, and make money.
I guess so.
I'm sure in Italy they didn't care.
Absolutely.
And they just made a bunch of money off it. Yeah.
And then then you fast forward to Cruel Jaws, where they pretty much use
So explain 50%. What Cruel Jaws is. Yeah. Because Cruel Jaws I just watched today, and I need you to tell people what this thing is.
Now that's 90s, right?
Yeah. It was a made-for-TV Italian movie. And
Bruno Mattei.
Yeah, Bruno Mattei. And so,
a name that means quality.
Yeah. My favorite is the Hulk Hogan clone.
Oh my God. I thought it was Hulk Hogan for about 10 minutes. The guy looks exactly like the Hulkster. He looks like Hollywood Hulk Hogan, like that period, you know?
Wow. And does he rip his shirt off at any point?
He doesn't, but he's got the blonde mustache and blonde hair. And I just for a while I was like, is this early Hulk or something?
It's a great mashup, though, because it really blends Great White with the new footage really well, I got to say. You almost can't tell the two movies apart.
But it also uses Jaws 2, Jaws 3, Jaws 4. It has an exact scene of Jaws 3 that they've just taken the exact dialogue.
With different actors.
And done a different actors.
The scene in Jaws 2 when, what was it, Mike, like the little, what the hell's the son's name, Sean? When he's
Michael and Sean,
Yeah, Sean, remember the girl that he's with when she gets it? Like, like they used the footage of the shark attacking her in Great White and in Cruel Jaws. Yeah. They used the same exact shots of Jaws. They just intercut it with their film.
Right, so the idea of Cruel Jaws was that they shot the whole movie, but they didn't shoot any shark stuff. So all the shark footage and the attacks are from other movies.
Yeah. Great White and Jaws
and
too.
So it's kind of smart.
Well, the big controversy was this was initially part of a double feature that Scream Factory was going to put out.
Oh, really?
And we talked about it when they were on a few weeks ago, and they didn't realize that. And then once they found out, there's no way they were going to legally get away with it.
It's a shame. I love it. It's one of my it's my favorite Jaws ripoff.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really funny movie. Yeah. I was pretty amazed with what I was watching. And actually, some really weird dialogue, like swear words.
Able to find it on YouTube.
What was it, like Dick Brain? Dick Brain. They keep calling people Dick Brain and like just stuff that you couldn't write in an American script, you know?
It's helicopter death in it.
Oh, yeah. Which came from Last Shark, right?
Yes. Last Shark, actually, what's cool about the Last Shark, he's holding on to the helicopter and he gets bit.
Yeah.
And half. I remember that.
And he's still hanging on, but unfortunately, in Cruel Jaws, he falls out of the helicopter into the water. So, they do a really good job editing around it.
Wow. But it's also goofy, and it feels like a Flipper type ending, you know? Like it's
it just immediately cuts to
to
Jaws 3 dolphins.
It's really fun. But I mean, do you know anything about the making of was it just him?
No, that one I do not.
Yeah, I guess it's probably never even talked about it, right?
It's brilliant. I just love the doctor in that movie. The way he describes the shark, you know. It's got a mouthful of butcher knives.
And it's a locomotive. Yeah. It's a locomotive train with a mouthful of butcher knives.
It's amazing. Yeah.
I love that. Several months ago, I saw Tintorera on the big screen, which I thought was...
I would have killed this
Mexican horror film.
Yeah. And
the sleaziest.
The sleaziest with two dudes that are way too close.
It's tough to watch that one. Because of all the shark deaths in it. It's it's unsettling.
Yeah, what's a story? Do you know anything about that? Because I might have mentioned it when I saw it, but they kill sharks. And I mean, it looks like real footage. Like they're killing sharks.
They are. I can't tell if they were actually just doing it on the island and they were shooting, like a Cannibal Holocaust thing. I think they were, they were going to eat those animals anyway, so they filmed it.
Right.
I don't know how it works for that one. But I like the film though. I have the poster too of that one.
I always liked the one that it was Cardona Jr. was the guy who directed that one, and he followed it up with another shark film called Cyclone, which was put out by Synapse a couple of years ago.
Great poster.
Yeah, I have the poster for that one. I absolutely love that poster.
That one, not a lot happens until the end.
No, there's no sharks until the last 10 minutes of the movie because it's people stuck on a boat and they're starving. They can't do anything. So it's mostly a cannibal movie. And I think they eat a dog at one point. So it's mostly a cannibal movie. And then in the last 10 minutes, some sharks show up. Yeah. But I loved the poster for that.
Oh, that was an awesome poster.
Yeah.
And then
you told me
Up from the Depths also.
Oh, I don't know.
Up from the Depths is a cool one because they show the fake, it's not really a shark. It's some type of sea, killer fish. It's gigantic.
Up from the Depths. What time period?
That's in the late 70s. Okay. Also, so it's in that prime Jaws ripoff era.
Right.
I actually thought Cruel Jaws was interesting because it wasn't a great white; it was a tiger shark. That was an interesting choice. I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know much about that. And they kept talking about tiger sharks are even more dangerous.
Yeah, I guess around the night that movie Red Water was a bull shark. I mean, I guess they started messing around with different sharks around that era.
Yeah, Joe D'Amato did one that...
It's not very good. It's old stock.
Demonfish? Is that it?
Oh, you mean Devilfish?
Devilfish.
Bava. It's really bad.
That is Bava, thank you.
It's really tough to get.
I'll tell you one.
What a cool poster.
It's an incredible poster.
If we can, let's talk briefly about Peter Benchley, because he's the one that obviously kicked us off with the Jaws novel, even though I'm reading the Jaws novel now, and I don't think it's very good. But I was always fascinated by Beast. which I don't think I've seen it. I know they made it into a TV movie with William Peterson.
I saw that, yeah. That's the guy.
But the one that I love, and I just randomly caught this, I was on a flight back from New York out here, and it would just happen to be on the TV. It's based on one of his books. It's called Creature. Yeah. And it stars, who is it? Craig T. Nelson and Kim Cattrall.
Oh, shit. That's the amphibious shark.
It's got like a shark man.
Yeah.
Like a dude like...
I remember it as a shark frog.
Yes.
But yeah.
It's like a shark.
That was like late 90s.
It's like an alien-style shark creature.
He eventually wrote a book called White Shark, and it's about like Nazi... It's about Nazi...
Like White Dog.
Yeah, it's Nazi experimenting on great whites, and it's accidentally let loose into the sea, and then eventually they couldn't call it White Shark for the TV film because it's only like a shark for like the first half. I like the first half of the miniseries,
right? Because it's like a 4-hour thing.
Yeah, once he starts turning into Sharkman, which was a movie they tried to get made in the 70s. It has a great poster. I'll have to post it on my Tumblr so you guys can check it out. It's
Sharkman.
Yeah, they tried to make a Sharkman movie in the 70s. It hasn't, but
so Creature is based on a book called White
Shark.
White Shark.
I think it's one of Benchley's last because eventually he was trying to, he wasn't having successful with his other books, so he had to do the Beast and White Shark.
The shark movie, those type of things.
I don't think this is the one you're talking about, Sharkman with Jeffrey Combs and William Forsythe.
No, not that one.
Because this poster's kind of badass too.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah,
that Sharkman.
That's hilarious. No, it was more
Sharkman. The other Sharkman.
It had more of a Hawaiian tiki feel to it.
Yeah,
the one I'm talking. I'll try to
cool,
post it on my Tumblr.
What's the one you told me one that you like called Barracuda? That was on your
Barracuda.
Barracuda.
A lot of people don't like Barracuda. I like Barracuda because it has my favorite ending. I
want to know who you hang out with when you say a lot of people don't like Barracuda.
They find it to be boring, but I like Barracuda because they show the Barracuda quite a bit attacking people. But then the middle of the movie, it turns into a conspiracy film. But I think it has like a really awesome ending. But that's one of my favorite Sharksploitation movies.
I remember that having a similar plot to Piranha.
Yeah, it's very similar.
It's very much like we've been chemicaling the water.
Exactly.
I made that a verb.
Chemicaling.
We're chemicaling the water, and
there's also the people try to explain why the fish are going crazy. I mean, like if you go later on into the 2000s, there's this batshit movie called Raging Sharks that starts off with out of space, like two UFOs colliding, and then it crashes into the ocean, and that's why the sharks start going batshit. Is because of an alien UFO in the water.
Wow.
So like Barracuda and Piranha, it's pretty funny how they always try to explain why these fish. I mean, Piranha, they're experimenting on.
Yeah. It's always less fun when it comes from experimenting.
Yeah, because I feel like that
takes away from the power.
Because Shark Attack 1, I believe they're going crazy because of something in the water that's like a speaker or something under the water.
Well, that's the same thing in Shark Attack 3 Megalodon. I think it's like electro drilling or something that they're doing.
Yeah.
That's driving them, that's bringing out the Megalodons.
Could you recount the key line from that movie?
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't know there was a Shark Attack 1 or 2. I just thought they went straight to Megalodon.
Actually,
Really,
Shark Attack 2 is actually pretty funny because going back to Jaws 2, like he has a damaged look, like the girl in the opening cuts out his eyeball, so every time you see the shark in Shark Attack 2, it's missing an eyeball, and it's hilarious. But they show what I like about that one, like in the Shark Attack films, is they don't show the shark as much in the first Shark Attack, but 2 and 3 they show the fake shark a lot until they get to was it the photoshopping shit.
But it's weird how we like just like with monster movies. I like fake shark over real shark.
I just love.
Me too.
I remember seeing a bootleg of the last Great White. And on the back, you just see this like fake things just popping out of the water. Like, I want to see this.
But I have to say, the whole
stop
idea,
showing him.
The CG sharks have kind of taken something away from me.
Yeah.
Because
I'm
whereas,
totally not interested.
like, even if we're on the sci-fi level, like 2004, Sci-Fi did this film called Frankenfish, and it's an actual Frankenfish.
Written by the great Simon Barrett.
Yes.
Really?
But it's a fun movie. It's a really fun movie. And the guy, and Rob Hall did the actual Frankenfish. I mean, it's a really cool practical effect.
It's got a great death scene when, was it China Chow, that chick, when she dies in it. It's a really cool death scene.
It's set in a bayou, and it was, I tell you, you, that one was great hustle on Hollywood's part, because it was like you hear about the snakehead in Maryland, where they found this fish swimming in this pond, and it was this Japanese fish that like can walk on land, and it's carnivorous, and it takes out everything. And then I swear, like 3 weeks later, they had Frankenfish ready to go.
Corman had already made
great
3
hustle,
films.
Guys. Great hustle.
Well, what do you say? How can you have any insight as to, because obviously we had Jaws, and then it spawns all these sequels, and now we're in a similar thing on a low budget world, because sci-fi just is putting out shark movie after shark movie.
My personal favorite, I like Whale Wolf.
Has anyone got a new one? Whale Wolf versus Frankenstein?
Yeah, there's a new one coming out. I'm also a big fan of Ghost Shark.
But also the popularity
the shark's
of...
scarier if it's been dead already.
Yeah. But also the popularity of Shark Week that Eli Roth is hosting this week. That, you know, all of these things, I mean, it seems never ending, our interest in the underwater creature.
It's weird because, like, we had the 70s, there was a bunch of shark, you know, the Jaws ripoffs. And then we had then we had the 80s. And then towards the end of the 80s, we had that weird underwater little batch of Deep Star 6 and all that. Yeah. And then getting back.
Labyrinth.
And then after Deep Blue Sea, you know, we had like that one for TBS I mentioned, Red Water, about, and then when sci-fi started making them, they started getting more CG, and I think there is 2 audiences. There's the lover of the early half shark movies where they're actual prosthetic sharks.
Yeah, that's us.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, and then there's the fans of the CGI ones.
Who are you?
Have you watched Sharknado?
Yeah.
I actually like the first Sharknado. But I think during that time I was watching Two-Headed Shark Attack, Sand Sharks. I was watching.
Have you seen Sharks in Venice? It's actually pretty good.
And you're still married.
Yeah, that one
I like
with
that
Stephen
one.
Baldwin. That one's. The thing about that one is just they take it so serious, which is so
it's
shocking.
so intense, considering that there are sharks in the canals of Venice.
It's so weird.
Did you see the one in the Australian Mall?
Which one?
The one in the
Bates.
mall.
I
love Bates.
It's really
Bates
good.
great.
I agree. I think Bates really
Sharny
fun.
Vincent is in it.
Yeah, I have the 3D Blu-ray.
Me too.
And see, those are
I haven't had
CG
3D.
sharks, but they're tolerable. Like, I can handle that one.
And again, in 3D, like for that in 3D, it works. I can't explain it. Like the CG it looks fine. It
and
looks
even
fine in that
Shark
format.
Night. I mean, Shark Night didn't
Shark Night's awful.
That was my
not
favorite
good.
movie of that year was Shark Night 3D. I hated
guys
that movie.
it's terrible.
I can't say it was a great movie, but
No,
I
it's
liked
not.
that it didn't take it. I like that they did a rap song at the end, because it kind of like it knew what it was.
Not excusable. Bait is a far superior
No,
movie.
I will agree. Bait is much better. I did like that Shark Night used the cookie cutter shark, a highly underused shark.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That was the one they caught.
There was moments, and I saw it in
Good
3D
director.
in the theaters. The 3D was actually really good.
They never released Shark
I didn't
Night
see it
in
in
3D at home. Like it only showed in 3D in theaters.
Yeah.
But like you can't get a 3D version of
Can
it.
you get
didn't
Bait
know that.
3D on
What's that?
3D? Like, has Bait been released on like 3D Blu-ray?
Yeah, that one I have. Yeah, we both have that one.
I'd like to see that. I didn't know that was in 3D.
Yeah, it's great.
It's
Yeah.
a
A lot of
fun
fun.
film.
What
The
did
other
you-
good one from that era was another Australian one that's just really underrated is The Reef.
Oh yeah, I like the Reef.
Yeah, the Reef is good. That director did an ABCs of
I
Death.
like Open Water, but I like The Reef way better. I think it's
too.
way more intense.
Yeah.
And
Open Water scared me when I saw it in theaters. Like I was kind of disturbed by it, but I agree. I think The Reef was more of a movie. You know, Open Water, you felt.
And Open Water's a one-shot deal for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah,
like
you
once
couldn't
you
watch it
see
or
it, I
rewatch
just
it,
don't. I never want to watch it again.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty much a torture film for me. And it came out around that same time, so I kind of put it into the same... It's weird. Mentally, I kind of like chunked it in with the rest of them because it is like an endurance torture film for me.
that's what Shark Night 3D is kind of too. It came out during the whole torture porn era.
Yeah, like
so
that was
it's-
the whole like, let's put him in the water and torture him with sharks and put it on YouTube thing.
That was the year where I felt like I remember when I was doing my best of list, Sarah Paxton I felt had been in my favorite horror movie of the year and my least favorite.
Least favorite,
like
yeah.
Innkeepers and that same year I was like, wow, totally different.
Yeah.
What was sad is like I followed that movie from the moment it was announced. You know.
Yeah.
Why do you
But,
think you love it so much? Like, what is? I mean, I know Becca does too. But what do you think it is about sharks? If you're watching an Adam Baldwin shark movie, you are that far gone. So, what is it about sharks? I mean, have you got any idea what it is? Is it just the initial love?
It was just watching Jaws when I was a kid and just getting obsessed with it.
Yeah.
You know, my dad took me to see it twice in the theaters, and I don't know. I was just I can't tell you why. It's so weird.
I think you owe us a documentary on this because then you'll have to discover the
I would
connection.
it's my dream documentary.
Like, I'm obsessed
Yeah, I
with
love
sharks in general, and I think that's why it's so... But it's not even just sharks. It's like all sea life. Like, I can tell you ridiculous amounts of facts talks about Architeuthis, which is the giant squid, who is an equal source of fascination for me. Yeah,
but it's also because sharks are actually coming to get us right now. Yeah. I mean, this week there's been more attacks. I think the level's like 8 times the amount of shark killings in the last week than there should be at this time.
There's like environmental reasons for that. I don't think that the sharks are like, fuck these guys. But then again, they could. I mean, we are kind of assholes, so I don't know. But and that's my favorite thing to watch on the Discovery Channel, like anytime. Actually, I wrote down one of the best shark movies I've ever seen was not actually a fiction shark movie. It's called 12 Days of Terror. And
that was really good.
Yeah, it was a made-for-TV documentary on the Discovery Channel documenting the 1915 shark killings in New Jersey. And it's wonderful. It's like it's one of my favorite documentaries.
What was actually happening to these people in New Jersey?
Oh, it's what Jaws was based off of, where there was kind of a rogue bull shark roaming. They don't know if it was just one bull shark or if a whole group of bull sharks had been pushed in, but they were attacking in the river. Like kids were swimming in the river and getting attacked by sharks, and then somebody's dog got attacked. And it actually Jaws follows the same pattern for the first part as the 1915 shark attacks in Jersey.
Was it fueled by voodoo?
Probably. I like to think most things are.
Yeah, good. I believe
But really, guys, we need to circle back to Shark Attack 3 because we kind of glazed over.
Okay. I want you to do the line because if we do it, it's going to sound tasteless. But if you talk about eating something,
then it's okay.
So you tell us the
you
line,
all
and
know
then
what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, I just assume so. So Shark Attack 3.
Go to YouTube, pause the show, go to YouTube, and look up this movie, and it will be the first thing.
You can just Shark Attack 3 pickup line. But in Shark Attack 3, which is it's a decent shark film, I have to say, even aside from the line. It's
thoroughly
rather
entertaining.
amazing.
Yeah, the first half is a regular shark film in a way.
And then at the end, you get a giant fucking megalodon. It's awesome. But, I mean, it's continuing on as a very standard shark film. And up to this point, there has not been a great deal of love interest. Like, you can tell that the scientist and I don't even know what he is, the guy who's investigating the sheriff type dude, you can tell that there's, mild flirting, but there hasn't been anything predominant. And then at one point, they've kind of summed up the scene. They're like, okay, well, I'm going home for the day. And the guy turns to her and says, why don't you let me take you home and eat your pussy? And that line has become so epically famous.
When I saw it, I thought somebody had dubbed it as a joke, so I didn't believe that could be in a movie. I still don't know if I believe it.
It's so bizarre.
It's just crazy.
And then my favorite part of it is, so a couple of years ago, I saw that Shark Attack 3 Megalodon was playing on Sci-Fi. And I decided I had to see this because it was suddenly like, how are they going to put in the pussy line? They can't put in the pussy line if it's on Sci-Fi. I have to watch this. So I watched the entire thing just waiting for that line, and it became, why don't you let me take you home and we play Parcheesi? And that's hilarious.
That's actually pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's actually really smart.
Cut to sex.
But Rob has another story that tells us the origins of this line.
Because I remember I remember briefly there was a period where that became like the YouTube video everyone was sharing.
Oh, yeah.
Was that. So I went even further and found a clip of the guy in that scene on some Australian talk show or whatever, being interviewed for Shark Attack 3 Megalodon, and he's an openly gay actor, and they were asking about it. He's like, oh my god, he's like, the director just said to me, just say something, anything that'll make her laugh that she won't be expecting. He's like, so I made up this stupid thing about, because of his sexual preference, he's like, oh, it'll make her laugh by somebody eat her pussy.
Yeah.
And he's like, and then they put it in the fucking movie.
That's amazing.
He's like, I had no idea.
That's
so amazing. It's pretty amazing.
Does the love scene follow it? Or does
it cuts right to them in bed together.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
And
totally.
it's a very kind of Top Gun sentimental, take my breath away love scene.
That's the funniest part is that edit. The cut right to them, shirtless in bed together. But quite.
I mean, I guess I look at sharks as the closest thing we have, I guess, to real predators left, things that could hurt us. Crocodiles too have been exploited a bit in Australia for that kind of entertainment. But even when I was watching Jurassic World recently, there's moments where my brain stops and has to remind myself, holy shit, dinosaurs were real. I feel as a culture, we bury that because we believe in monsters, we make up myths, but even scarier than almost all the monsters we've ever drawn or created are dinosaurs, which were something, and then dinosaurs, especially the aqua versions of that have so many links to sharks that you're like, you know what, that is actually kind of fucking scary.
Well, I think the amazing thing is the biggest horror or the things that scare us is the fear of the unknown. And it's like the ocean is still an unknown to most people.
Yeah.
And like, like a few weeks ago, I went to like the Science Center here in Los Angeles, and they have the whole like underwater tank.
Oh my God. Rob texted me a picture of a fucking centipede.
Oh, yeah. I was like, I'm going to bring this home and put it in your bed.
It was like this giant goddamn centipede picture. And he goes, I found someone who wants to meet you or something.
Exactly. I was like, I'm going to bring that home. That was Sean Keller, actually. He was like, send that to Becca. That'll freak her out.
What the fuck?
But again, they have, so there's that section where you get to see the most bizarre, crazy creatures like that, but a whole underwater thing, and you just, I don't know, it's hard not to be in awe of it, because it's something that we physically do not see in everyday life, but yet it exists, and it's like a whole nother world that's right here, and there's all these, you're staring at these different creatures, and the way they look so weird and odd, and you're just
some of the ones that glow, like some of the octopus
I mean, it's funny because they have a tank of jellyfish, but like there's like a blue light on them because you would not be able to see them otherwise, and it's like, man, that's fascinating.
I remember in the closest aquarium that we had to my house when I was growing up was the Baltimore Aquarium, which is huge. And I remember going to that and seeing a sea cucumber. And I remember watching it like it was this big thing to go see it at feeding time because it would turn itself inside out to eat. And it was the most terrifying thing and the most fascinating
like
thing.
Like a Jim Warnowski film.
I know, like a Jim Warnowski film. But it would pretty much like turn itself inside out, shoot its stomach out, grab its food, and then flip itself right back. Wow. And it was the strangest thing. I think it was a sea cucumber. Somebody's going to like Facebook me and be like, no, that is the blankety blank. Yeah. But
That's
I just
funny.
remember seeing it with such just repulsion and fascination simultaneously.
What are some like deep cut titles? Like what are things we haven't? I mean, we brought up a lot of the obvious, the Jaws sequels, Orca, Deep Blue Sea, and stuff like that. But are there any?
Barracuda might have been one.
Barracuda, definitely. I've never heard of that. But
I printed out a list of deep cuts.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I want to know some films that I haven't ever seen that I should.
That's a good question. I brought up a few. Let me think for a second. Like I was saying, like some of my favorites are the ones where they show it. Like I was talking about earlier, like Up from the Depths and the Jaws of Death, and I like there's I'm trying to think of the ones from the 80s. Tell you the truth, because the other one, because there was it Alligator came out, then we had like a whole batch of alligator and
they're all riffs of the same thing, right?
Here's one that I found that I've never seen: Shark Paradise from 1986.
Shark Paradise.
It's apparently Australian.
Yeah, I don't know that one.
And then I found another one called Atunk.
Yes, that's
Atunk.
That one's not very.
It's Bollywood.
Yes,
it seems to be a Bollywood
a girl
film.
is actually singing and swimming in the water, and then 2 seconds later she gets eaten. She just got married.
Oh, cool!
And she's singing and swimming in the water, and then she gets eaten. I love the way the shark looks in that film. It's kind of disturbing looking.
Huh.
Wow.
Okay, I found a list. You've got a list too, because I found one of like 50.
And here was another one. Joe D'Amato's 1990 film Deep Blood looked kind of cool.
Yeah, it's not very good. That's when I was saying it's all stock footage of sharks. It has a fantastic poster, and that one I took forever to hunt down, and I was so disappointed in it.
Do you think we're likely to ever see, because of how CG is just basically here now, do you think anyone's likely to make another shark? I mean, maybe Meg, that's more relying on practicals and creature effects rather than just CG.
Unless they do the Jaws remake that they keep kind of teasing us with. But Megalodon's going to be it has to be.
What would a Jaws remake be? The same story, the same movie?
I don't know how they will. I mean, I'd be curious to see it, but then I'd be scared at the same time.
Because when people talk about a Birds remake, I have no issue with that. I think Birds is a great movie, but somebody could make a cool version of that, sure. Whereas Jaws, I'm like, I don't know if you could really improve on that.
Well, yeah, I mean,
there was a weird.
I say you just got to make the fifth one and have it not be the characters from the original at all.
Yeah,
like
you have to reinvent it.
I like it when they acknowledge the earlier movies and are just like, oh,
yeah, there was those shark attacks in Amity Island years ago, and then we move on.
Great grandfather Brody.
There was a codfish movie too. Where
Did you just say codfish?
Yeah, because at the ending he jumps in and starts beating it with a bat. It was a foreign movie. I forgot what country it's from. That was from the 70s.
That Australian, the Australian crocodile, deep red. What is the recent one by the guy who did Wolf Creek?
Blackwater.
Rogue.
Yeah, Rogue reminded me a lot of a shark movie. Like I felt like the setup and the kind of the way it was designed felt more like one of those movies. I thought it was pretty good.
Well, Blackwater was very much like open water. Blackwater because it was 3 kids or teens, I guess, in a tree. With a crocodile.
That one was cool.
Yeah, that one was cool.
Did you ever see Creatures from the Abyss or Plankton?
Mm-mm.
It's on
Plankton?
Yeah, it's worth checking out. It all takes place on a boat. It's like it's killer fish on an actual boat. They never go in the water. It's weird. Like these kids just find this boat, like they're out in the water, just and they go aboard, and it's just full of just these weird sea creatures that are now taking over the boat.
Wow.
I love the notion of a movie called Plankton.
It's hilarious.
I'm just picturing killer plankton now.
I don't know, I get a kick out of that one. And the lead girl just is in a bikini the entire movie. It's so funny.
Wow.
Plankton movie.
I'm trying to think of, there was just weird ones that I don't think they're worth watching, like Psycho Pike.
Are any of the new ones even remotely like
I started taking a little break because they're all silly now because it's like Sharktopus and I mean I still watch them, but nothing really stuck with me too much of the
they don't feel like movies anymore. They feel like wrestling events, like this versus that.
Well, when we grew up in Long Island, we had like every Thanksgiving they showed King Kongs, and then they always showed Godzilla films. But now I think Sci-Fi Channel turned into the new, creature features for kids. And so now just the shark films have just turned, like, she mentioned Ghost Shark, which is like you step in a puddle and then this ghost shark comes out. I watched a movie called Snow Shark about a shark.
A shark avalanche was one.
Yeah, so that's what so they're not really as, when we watched Jaws, it was terrifying. And then when you watch movies like,
Has there been a space shark?
Well, like I was saying, Raging Waters is when the UFO crashes into the ocean, but that's the closest. But there hasn't been like a real alien shark.
That feels like a
Dino Shark.
Dino Sharks. But there was, I want to say like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, there was one called Super Shark.
Yes, that's what's his nuts, that awesome director.
It wasn't awful because it wasn't like the shark didn't, even though that it's titled Super Shark, he was not super. It was
Fred Olin Ray.
Ray.
Yeah, actually that has a good moment in it where like some of the lead people die surprisingly in that one. I actually enjoyed that one.
Yeah, that's why I bring it up. Is as far as the sci-fi, it's silly. It's still a sci-fi film, but it's not bad.
Where you watched for the first time the zombie? I don't know if you heard about it or if you saw it, but where the zombie versus the shark and full cheese zombie. Do you remember seeing that the first time? Being like, holy shit!
Yeah, I rented that when I was a kid.
That's an incredible moment.
Yeah, that moment.
It's incredible.
It's beautiful. That should be like on. It's a work of art.
Well, when I first shot,
the zombie facing off against the shark.
And he doesn't look like he's struggling to breathe down there. I mean, it all feels so realistic.
It's amazing.
And then because that made me think. I think I tweeted this when I was watching Jaws. Where I was like, oh well, then has anyone done Zombie Shark? Because that seems like a no-brainer. We could make Jaws, literally Jaws, and Jaws comes back to life, and he's a zombie. And then, of course, somebody tweeted me straight away. John Squires wrote, "Coming 2 weeks from now on Sci-Fi Zombie Shark."
Is there?
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, I gotta say, I'm looking at the creatures of the abyss right now on Google. These are some fucking awesome creature effects.
Really?
Yeah, they look fun.
It's Italian.
Yeah, they look fun. I mean, they look like men in giant rubber suits, but they're fun men in giant rubber suits.
That was what was it?
1994.
It was Shark Week did a thing on Megalodon. It was a 3D. It was a 3D episode of Shark Week, Megalodon in 3D, and then that's when Shark Attack 3 came out a year later. And then the same year as Shark Attack 3, there was a movie called Megalodon, which is a ripoff of Deep Blue Sea, where it's like Megalodon is just. It doesn't really eat anyone because it all takes place like underwater in one of those facilities. But the ending had a really cool shot of a girl on a sailboat and it's swimming underneath her. But
did you ever see the God? Who does these now? Maybe it's not the History Channel. I think it's on Discovery. So again, I tend to get really into these things when I'm taking long flights to places. But I'm on a flight from New York to here, and I just happen to catch, I guess it's on Discovery or whatever it is, a little bit of this crew, this expedition that has heard that there is possibly a Megalodon sighting.
That was part of Shark Attack. It was part of Shark Week it was either last year or the year before. It was like a found footage documentary of them trying to find a Megalodon.
It's not totally found footage, but it's very like reality television style. Yeah. But the thing is, like, I flip in on this in the middle, and I'm like, no way.
It pissed everyone off, that thing, because everyone was expecting something that was real, and then it was like the mermaid thing.
That came on right after. I watched that. I was like, wait a minute, that's not real. And then they did a whole documentary on finding a mermaid, and I was like, holy shit.
I actually think
it upset me.
If you go back to the episodes from about this time last summer, I'm pretty sure I rant about that. So, it pissed me off bad. Because I really wanted a documentary on the Megalodon, and then it's like, I'm learning about these people and their submersibles.
Was Shark Alarm about a Megalodon? It was the bad guy from Best of the Best 2. Running around on the beach yelling Shark Alarm.
You need to break, Stephen. You need to break. I'm still disappointed at Catfish. You know?
Oh, yeah, they're the cool. What was it? The same director of Last Shark did Shark Hunt with Franco Nero. And that's that. If you like Franco Nero and sleazy Italian movies,
Shark
Hunter. It's got a lot of stock footage. It's a lot of stock footage. But, exactly. I don't know. For some reason, I kind of like that one.
Is there a rubber shark at any point, or it's just stock footage?
I'm trying to remember. There is quite a bit of stock footage, but I like Franco Nero.
Yeah,
like it's I don't know. Early '80s Castellari is pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
I love how we were just before we were talking about Jaws 4, and we're talking about like the fact that I think it was with Jackson Stewart. He was at the cafe today, and I was talking about how good it was, and I don't think he'd seen it in a long time. He's like, "Why don't they just not go in the water?" And I was like, "I don't know." I'm like, if there's a curse against your family that a shark's going to get you, why are you still being attracted to the
Bahamas? The water is supposed to be warm, and
I know.
Like there's a scene in the book where like I brought before about the windsurfer death with him. Like seeing the fin and like, wait a second, there's not supposed to be sharks in this water.
Yeah.
Him talking to himself before he dies.
That's the whole concept of Meg, though, is that these sharks, megalodons, have existed for, since the dawn of when they first arrived, the Cretaceous period, but they've existed in the Mariana Trench, and they can't get out of the Mariana Trench because of the cold water barrier. But then something happens, and one is able to escape, and she's pregnant.
Oh, she's pregnant.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Well, you can go online and you can look up a lot of there was a lot of concept art from the 1990s one in there.
Huh.
Really? Okay.
Because the guy wrote like 2 other books after it.
He's got like 5 now. Because I'm binge reading them. Like I'm so into them because she's pregnant. But now the second one, it's her baby, and so it's very Jaws-like. So.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit like Alien too.
Yeah, I tweeted out a photo a couple weeks ago of the shark bursting out of the water, about to get a surfer from the original like concept art of it.
And I think there's like some teaser footage that they made for the books, right? Because like when you said you heard that they shot something with the Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yeah, it was through CG. I mean, it was a CGI sequence when like I said, Jean de Bont was attached to it, of him attacking the T-Rex, and I've been trying to track it down forever.
It's like the sacred image of the first one, but it's like the first 10 pages of the book.
I can't wait to see
it's
the last 10 minutes of Eli Roth's movie where he shows that, whereas the other 90 minutes is just college frat boys like jerking each other off. Oh, dude, there's Meg, dude.
Shark, man.
For a second, they were on YouTube, because I was obsessed with it. They claimed they had the footage of it, and then when I watched Shark Alarm, it was just the rendering of that movie.
Oh, weird.
Unfortunately, I was like, damn it.
But you're also, because we haven't talked about this, but you're also a writer. You're writing narrative, normal movies.
Yeah, don't you have a big one coming up?
Oh, you mean Final Girl?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
What did you do on that? I knew you did story stuff. I didn't realize you...
Well, I wrote the first draft of it.
Oh, cool.
It was the first...
I've heard it was really good.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen... I've been...
Sundance, right? I think it started.
I have no idea. I've been out of the loop since we sold it.
Writers. I see that with so many writers. Like, I don't know. I came up with the story. I haven't heard of it in like 2 years. So.
Because I was writing with my writing partner at the time was Alejandro Seri, and we wrote a bunch of scripts. We just couldn't sell them because we were writing stuff we wanted to see, and we were, and so, and I was like, it was the first horror movie we wrote, and I was like, I love the term Final Girl, and I love the last 20 minutes of every Friday the 13th movie where it's a Final Girl chase. So how about an 1.5 hour Final Girl chase movie? And then that was the original concept, and then we eventually sold it, and then it kind of changed from there.
Okay, interesting.
And so we've been out of the loop on it.
So when you see it, you'll have to see how much of your film is even there.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm excited though that a lot of people are really excited for it. So I'm happy. I think it looks really cool. It looks like an art film.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to check it out.
And you also co-wrote with Jackson Stewart the film he just shot.
Yeah, Beyond the Gates.
Oh.
Yeah, it's based on.
That sounds Italian.
Yeah, it's about we're really excited about it. It's about a VCR board game that kind of opens the gates to another dimension.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of like Doorways to Horror
starring
a horror film.
people we're friends with.
Graham
Skipper.
So Graham
Brea
Skipper,
Grant.
Chase Williamson,
And Brea.
Oh my God.
and Barbara Crampton as the video hostess. So yeah, it's
people.
It's about like 2 brothers closing down their dad's video store and finding this mysterious VCR game. So it's just it's a love letter to VHS video
Oh
stores.
my gosh.
And the fact that we got to shoot at one of the last open video stores is pretty cool.
Did you
Eddie Brandt's, baby?
Yeah.
Oh, I love Eddie Brandt's.
It's a great place.
I could spend hours in that place.
So like,
it smells wonderful.
So like 10 years from now, when kids don't know what VHS is, and they can actually see what a video store looks like.
Yeah.
Now, did you guys actually get some of the old VHS like horror video games? Like I used to have one, and I don't even remember what it was, but it was a white dude in a cloak. I remember that one vividly.
Was it Atmosphere or Nightmare?
It may have been Nightmare. I'm Googling this.
There's like 4 Nightmare, and then
I never saw any of these.
There's a lot. There was a RoboCop one. If you follow Beyond the Gates on Twitter, you'll see ton. I'm gifting like crazy.
Oh, you're doing the Twitter?
Like the Gargoyles VHS board game and
that
WrestleMania. And
I had the Clue one.
Yeah, I had the Clue one also.
You have to be a full-on nerd for today. This is for the real nerds.
No, that was cool. Jackson and I hung out and we were talking about 80s horror films like The Gate and and stuff like that. And then we just, it
was Nightmare. White dude in cloak. That's him exactly. I remember the intro to that one.
Dude. Yeah, and he keeps changing throughout the game.
Yep.
Any other things in production or close to production, or is that the slate right now?
That's it right now. I got, I'm just outlining shit and
you want to do something with the ideas of some of these movies that haven't been done, right? You're still developing.
Yeah, there is a bunch I haven't brought up that I'm still
because you're holding them for that.
Yeah, it's my favorite subject. I'm just obsessed with movies that weren't made.
You can meet him in a coffee shop and he'll tell you the answer. He can't tell you on air, or you'll steal his ideas.
Is there a good book? Because I know there's been several books throughout the years that talk about movies that haven't been made. Is there one that you reference that you think is good?
You could buy. Yeah, let me think for a second. God, hold on. There's a really good one. What the hell is it called? It has this awesome chapter on Batman Year One that Darren Aronofsky was going to make. It was kind of like this freaking Taxi Driver meets Serpico version of that.
Yeah.
That'd be badass.
I'm trying to blank. I feel like one of the 80 cool guys might have done a book.
The greatest sci-fi movies never made.
That's it.
There's that one.
Because they talk a lot about John Carter of Mars.
Yes, that's the one. And then they go through some of the Indiana Jones, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Because if you watch Crystal Skull, it's kind of like a Frankenstein version of all the other scripts.
Yeah.
Do you have that one film though that if you could have seen any one film that was meant to be made, that you were always just would it have been Jodorowsky's Dune? Or
it would have probably been Jodorowsky's Dune.
Yeah.
Or even Steven Seagal and Genghis Khan.
What? Are you fucking serious?
Van Damme fighting the Abominable Snowman. There's so many. Wait.
Is that the same movie? Steven Seagal fighting as Genghis Khan and the
No, Steven Seagal was going to do an epic Genghis Khan film.
Wow. I mean, I guess if John Wayne was, he can be. We don't do Genghis many favors.
God, there's so many I would have loved to have seen.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one called The Tourist that was supposed to be because what was it? The
Johnny Depp thing?
What was it? E.T. stopped the evil alien movies because that's why The Thing bombed. But they were going to make a movie that was kind of like District 9, and all the creatures were designed by H.R. Giger. And it was pretty much like New York City. The underground was just all these aliens slumming it there, trying to that's where they were stuck. And so it's about this woman alien who's trying to find a UFO so she could leave, and it's full of like strange alien sex.
I always like the Alien Nation. It's
almost it's almost like something like the ending of society in a fucking movie in the early '80s. It's really gooey. And
I didn't like the ending of society.
One day he'll you just need to meet a girl who will really turn you inside out.
That's it. What's this world need more
gooey.
shunting?
I'm trying to think of another one. Let's see.
Wow.
So you can always send us links. I mean, I'm always curious.
I'm going to leave here tonight and
these posters. We'll have plenty of fun posters.
Here's
to
a question.
share.
I don't know if you know this because I don't. But between when Star Wars trilogy started and then years later when the bad Star Wars films came, was there in between that period? Was there any talk of other things that were going to pop up and other sequels in that period, or was it always
for Star Wars?
Yeah, or was it always George was planning coming back the way he did? I'm always curious.
I remember. What was it? Let me think, because I remember they were going to do. Oh man, I don't know. I want to say it wrong, but I know I posted it once because I found it in an old Starlog that they were going to do the prequels. Actually, I think backwards, 3, 2, and 1, right after Return of the Jedi came out.
Interesting. Yeah,
you know,
I was curious.
Yeah, it would have been really cool to get those back then.
A great one, that one I remember reading in a Cronenberg, on Cronenberg book, where the book of interviews was his Total Recall. Sounded so interesting. It was like William Hurt at his peak. It was very cerebral, so it wasn't an action movie. It was much more sci-fi.
You gotta go online and look up Quado, is that the guy's name that's inside his chat? Look at Cronenberg's Quado. It's fucking really cool. And Cronenberg was going to do Return of the Jedi.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and Lynch was asked too.
I remember hearing jokes about that, about Cronenberg doing
Well, Lynch
Jedi.
is one, there's a great animation about his story about it. That's really funny, where he gets offered the job and he's just like, I don't even know. And what the fucking Wookiee? I mean, it's hilarious. It's like,
I would have loved to have seen it because how much he got away in his Dune is pretty, you know, pretty spectacular. And that would have been an easier
story to tell. The problem with Dune is it's really complicated.
I mean, he did the best he could in those 2 hours. There's supposed to be, I read in the library, the cinema library, when it was being released on VHS, they were supposed to release David Lynch's 4-hour director's cut,
right?
And that kills. I mean, when I did Jodorowsky's Dune, I was praying somehow that would get re-released, you know, because I wanted to do Resurrecting Dune.
Did you read that book though? The book about the making of Dune, because that's an amazing.
Oh yeah, that is a great.
Because people were dying. I'm not dying. No, they were dying. There were some people. Because of the heat, it was like 135 degrees in Mexico, and they're wearing black leather.
Just the fact that you had to comb the desert every time they had to shoot. You know?
No, it seemed like a really difficult project.
I still think it's it's a great adaptation. Just the fact that he fit that much in 2 hours and like 15, 20, 10 minutes. It's like, it's not a long movie, but
I love the score.
This is always blasphemy when I say it, but I like David Lynch's Dune better than the book, because in David Lynch's Dune, Paul really becomes the one. Like, he teaches them to ride the worms, and at the ending, you know, because in the book they already know how to ride the worms and everything. Which is weird about Jodorowsky, is like he actually kept close to a lot of the stuff in the book, believe it or not, like the Fremen. You know, they, you know, like. A lot of he just like mashed it up with a lot more stuff. But
what I liked about your movie, and it made me think about a lot of things, actually, is the ripple effect of cinema. It's like without Jodorowsky's Dune failing, without a movie failing, there's no Alien. And without Alien, there's no modern sci-fi. And without David Lynch's Dune, had David Lynch not made Dune, which was a failure, there's no Blue Velvet. And David Lynch never would. And Dino De Laurentiis, who produced Dune, a massive failure, got behind Lynch and said, "Okay, now make your movie. I'm going to still support you to make the movie you want to make." And had that never failed, he probably never would have made that film, and there would have been no Twin Peaks, no nothing. You know,
what else is interesting about that? It's like, then if you rewind back to Sharksploitation, it's like James Cameron on Galaxy of Terra. He was noticed. I mean, he was doing an effect shot of maggots on an arm. And some producers were really blown away at his effects, and they got him the job for Piranha 2: The Spawn. But actually, when Piranha 2 came out, it was called just The Spawning.
Yeah. That was a trivia question I asked last time.
Right on. Yeah. So in a weird way, it goes back, you know, it's like, I mean, it's just that O'Bannon angle. It was because O'Bannon made friends with Moebius. They wrote The Long Tomorrow, which influenced, you know, like cyberpunk to come. And then O'Bannon meeting Giger and bringing them on to Alien, you know, and bringing Giger into our world. And
it's a crazy stream of coincidence.
Look at Alien. I mean, even fucking when you play Contra, the boss battles, they look like aliens, you know. It's like it's just embedded in our society. Like, you know, like if you look at the original Alien, when Ron Cobb designed it, it's totally different. The robot, the space jockey is totally different. You know what Giger brought to that creature, and just to the designs of the spaceship where it could be hiding. It's just.
Are you at all interested in Prometheus, or did that?
I like Prometheus.
I liked it a lot.
You know, I liked it. I thought it was
We've discussed it on the show before about how it's not that.
I'm interested where it would go. It's as a mythology. I'm curious to see more about it. I was just curious.
I'm curious to see it with all the cut footage. You know, I liked it. I mean, I like space horror because it's the ultimate place to put a thriller, because there's just, you know, where do you go when something's wrong?
Yeah.
You know,
but you also watch Adam Baldwin and shark movies. So I mean, I don't know how much people can trust.
I mean, I watch all shark movies. It's not just I watch a lot of bad shit. Have
you thought about sitting down to write your shark movie?
I have one outlined. It's not I have one outlined.
And is it you trying to do new ground, or go back to? No, you don't have to tell me what it's about. But is it something new, or is it you trying to go back to a classic?
It's both. It's kind of both. I'm sitting on it. I'm waiting on a possible writer that might want to write it with me.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm waiting on. But it's outlined. I've just been outlining lately like crazy.
Good.
But I'll be excited. Yeah, I'm excited about it though.
Okay, cool.
Great.
Cool.
Well, I hope that we have made your summer vacation all the more enjoyable.
If we haven't done all the sharks, go watch Sharks,
Barracuda, and I think we tackled some tentacles in there. So, yeah.
And Rob will have to report back once you see Cruel Jaws. I'll be curious to see.
Yeah, you haven't seen it yet.
No, I haven't seen it yet, no.
I only saw it today, and I loved the scene that's obviously from Jaws 2, where the girl, the girl's pouring the petrol, and the guy shoots the flare, and you're like, oh my God.
I'm
great. Can't wait.
It's an experience. It's beautiful.
So go swimming. Do you swim? Or you just can't swim because of that?
You know what's fun? My wife and I, we had our honeymoon a little bit late. We were in Hawaii, and it's so funny. Every time I'd be in the water for like 5 minutes, I had to get out. And then we realized it was like the summer of the most shark attacks in Hawaii. We were actually there, you know.
Oh, that's creepy.
My husband is one of those people where he can swim out past the breakers to where it's like 10 feet deep and you can't touch the bottom anymore and you can't see the bottom, and he's out there and he's like, Becca, come out. And I'm like, fuck no. As soon as it's above my knees in the ocean, I'm done.
That's
I'm not going any further.
I've seen enough movies to know better.
All right, well, thanks for coming out, Stephen.
Yeah,
thank you for having me.
And have a good summer, guys. Hope you're having a nice swim, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Soon.